Chapter 13. Other than Yi Hua and the guardian elder, Gui Ying and Gui Wu were also there. After Gui Wu was frightened by the starlight unicorn and teleported out, he felt uneasy. Especially after hearing his father talk about the bet with Yi Hua. His uneasiness became even more intense. He hurriedly told his father about what he saw and heard from Long Haochen. Gui Ying was also shocked. If Long Haochen had obtained a mount like the Starlight Unicorn, his son would definitely not be his opponent. Therefore, the father and son stayed and trained outside the sacred mountain, waiting for Long Haochen to come out and see what kind of mount he had obtained. They waited for more than 20 days. Seeing that the time was almost up, Long Haochen still hadn't appeared. Gui Ying's face was full of smiles these few days, and from time to time, he would tease the anxious Yi Hua with a few words. At this moment, seeing that Long Haochen had really returned empty-handed, Gui Ying couldn't help but feel relieved. He laughed and said to Yi Hua, "Brother Yi Hua, don't forget about our bet. I'll be waiting for you in the Monster Hunters selection competition. Wooer, let's go." As he spoke, he deliberately let Gui Wu summon the scarlet-scaled earth dragon, and with a face full of disdain and arrogance, Gui Wu sped away. A trace of anger appeared on Long Haochen's gentle face. He coldly watched Gui Ying and his son leave. He had already engraved this humiliation in his heart. "Didn't you gain anything?" Yi Hua said somewhat bitterly. He never thought that his disciple would actually follow in his footsteps, and was even inferior to him. Long Haochen lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, teacher, I've let you down." The guardian elder said doubtfully, "You're so talented, why didn't you gain anything? Could it be that those magical beasts are all blind? It's really strange." Long Haochen said with a bitter smile, "I also don't know why it's like this. I crossed the entire sacred mountain and met many magical beasts, but not a single one was willing to get close to me." The elder sighed and said, "You don't have to worry too much about it. Warriors without powerful mounts could also become powerhouses of a generation. Although mounts are very useful to us, knight, it doesn't mean everything. What is your choice now? You can either hunt for magical beasts on your own in the future, or try your luck with me. However, you have to know that in order to use the teleportation portal to attract a mount, you must first establish a contract during the process. Only magical beasts that have formed a contract with you will be teleported over. Although we knights can change mounts, if we want to violate the equality contract, we have to wait for the death of our mount companion. Your teacher and I can help you with this, but once you do so, it will definitely leave a shadow in your heart, and it will be very detrimental to your future cultivation." Long Haochen said without hesitation, "Senior, I'm willing to try my luck here." The old man nodded and said, "All right then. But don't get your hopes up. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment." At this point, he seemed to have thought of something from the past, and his single eye revealed a trace of disappointment. A golden token appeared in the old man's hand, and with a wave of his big sleeve, a layer of golden light had already enveloped the three of them. In the air above the light screen, 6 strange symbols appeared one after another, and the surrounding space instantly became distorted. Long Haochen vaguely understood that this was the old man using the power of the teleportation portal, and then using a special method to freely teleport within the knight's holy mountain. It seemed that the reason why they were able to discover that outsiders had entered was inextricably linked to this teleportation portal. Golden light flashed, and the intense light caused Long Haochen to involuntarily close his eyes. He was surprised to find that during the teleportation process, the funnel vortex in his chest suddenly spun violently, at least 10 times its usual speed. However, this process only lasted for about 10 seconds, and the vortex's spinning speed suddenly decreased, returning to its original state. Long Haochen opened his eyes, and the surrounding scenery had changed. He was actually in a cave, and the walls of the cave were inlaid with light golden gems. The faint golden light illuminated everything here. The light element in the cave was not rich, and it was far less than in the knight's holy mountain. At most, it was slightly stronger than the outside world. This cave was very large, and looking up, the top was at least 20 feet away from the ground. The entire cave was irregular in shape, and as far as the eye could see, it was at least more than 100 feet in diameter, just like a huge square. However, this place was empty and there was no one there. Long Houchen looked down at the ground, and he was surprised to find that there were trapezoidal lattices on the ground, and these lattices were closely connected, forming a huge ring that closed towards the center of this underground square. In every lattice there was a symbol that he did not recognize at all. At this moment, these symbols were dim and without light. There's no need to look. Not only you can't understand it, even us old guys can't understand it. This is the ancient elven language, the language of an ancient race that has gone extinct. I don't know how the ancestors of the Knight Templars discovered its mysteriousness, but the huge magic circle of our knight's holy mountain was completed with the help of the ancient elven incantation. This is one of the teleportation circles. Through this place you can instantly connect to other parallel spaces. The operation of the circle consumes a lot of energy, so you only have 15 minutes. If you can't find an aura that is close to you in 15 minutes to complete the contract, then I'm afraid you'll really have to return empty-handed this time. The old man's voice was somewhat regretful. He had never seen a talent like Long Houchen's in his life. It would be a pity if such an outstanding young man could not have a powerful mount. Thank you, Senior. Long Houchen bowed respectfully to the old man. The old man nodded and said, "Go to the center of the teleportation circle and sit down. After I activate the circle, you'll feel it." Yes. Long Houchen followed the old man's instructions and walked to the center of the underground plaza with large strides. Here, there was a circle with a diameter of about 10 meters, and in the center was the largest symbol. This symbol looked a bit like the word "like," but it had a distorted appearance. He didn't know why, but when Long Houchen saw this huge symbol, the saint's spiritual stove in his chest slightly throbbed. Sitting down cross-legged, Long Houchen got rid of all distracting thoughts. This was his last chance. Yihua's nervousness was not one bit inferior to Long Houchen's. The veins on his clenched fists were exposed, and he didn't even realize that his fingernails had pierced into his palms. The old man slowly raised the golden token in his hand. Yihua could clearly see that in just an instant, the old man's right hand that was holding the token had turned into a transparent and brilliant gold, as if his palm had turned into a gem. Glorious body, the symbol of a rank 7 temple knight. By transforming one's own body into a part of the light element, a powerful temple knight could even transform their entire body into a glorious body. Under this state, they could instantly double the amount of holy and light attribute spiritual power that they released. Although it could only be maintained for a very short period of time, no matter if it was attack or defense, it would double. What kind of concept was this? Very soon, Yihua discovered that it wasn't only the old man's hand that had turned into a glorious body. The few strands of white hair on his head had unexpectedly all turned into a golden color. Immediately after, his head became transparent, and an enormous holy aura that was as vast as the sea blossomed like an explosion. The pressure forced Yihua to retreat rapidly, and only when he reached the outermost stone wall was he able to stabilize his body. A complete version of the glorious body? Yihua almost cried out in surprise. This glorious body could be used as long as one was a rank 7 temple knight. However, the higher one's cultivation was, the larger the area that the glorious body could cover on one's body. Only when one's entire body had completely turned into a light crystal could it be called a complete version of the glorious body. This was the symbol of a rank 9 temple knight. In other words, this one-eyed old man in front of him was either an even more powerful rank 8 saint knight, or at least a rank 9 temple knight who was at the peak of rank 9. If such an existence was placed in the outside world, he would at least be a temple master of one of the main palaces of the Knights Templars. The size of the area that the glorious body could cover wouldn't affect its function. At most, it could only double the attack power. However, the higher one's cultivation was, the longer the glorious body could be maintained. The old man shouted in a low voice. The enormous amount of light spiritual power that had been enhanced by the glorious body suddenly poured into the golden token. Immediately, a circle of dense golden light spread out in a flash. Wherever the golden light passed, the ancient elven characters on the trapezoidal lattice on the ground seemed to have been ignited. One after another, they began to shine brightly. Suddenly, an intense and bizarre magic fluctuation began to appear in the entire cave. Yihua leaned against the wall and looked at the magnificent scene in front of him. His eyes didn't even blink. That bizarre feeling seemed to have made him touch the door to breaking through to a spiritual power level of 3000. In the next moment, when all the ancient elven characters were ignited, thousands of light patterns rippled from these ancient elven characters. The intense golden light caused the entire cave to become incomparably bright. Long Haochen only felt his body shake. It was as if there was an enormous amount of light energy penetrating through his body. At the same time, the saint's spiritual furnace in his chest also began to violently fluctuate. Under the guidance of the saint's spiritual furnace, the dense light elements in the outside world passed through Long Haochen's body. Unexpectedly, a portion of it was quietly retained, causing the funnel-shaped vortex to spiral. Thousands of golden light patterns began to revolve in one direction as they flew upwards. It looked like a huge golden tornado. However, there wasn't even the slightest bit of airflow fluctuation. There was only the enormous amount of light elements that filled people with fear. Another intense hum sounded. The light patterns converged at the top of the cave. A huge circular golden vortex appeared there. At the same time, from this vortex, a golden light descended from the sky, enveloping Long Haochen, who was sitting upright in the center of the teleportation array. The one-eyed old man's voice sounded in Long Haochen's ears. The selection has begun. The auras of countless magical beasts will appear in your perception. From these auras, look for those that have feelings of closeness to you and use the equality contract. Remember, you must find the aura that is closest to you. Otherwise, the contract will not succeed. Naturally, you will not be able to bring them to our world. Long Haochen could clearly hear everything the one-eyed old man said. However, he didn't reply. This was because he was currently immersed in a strange feeling. The moment the golden light pillar fell, Long Haochen felt as if his soul had left his body and entered a strange world. This was a world with millions upon millions of specks of light. These specks of light converged into a cloud of light that floated around him. At this moment, he seemed to be the center of this world. As long as he gazed at it, there would be countless specks of light pouring out from the cloud of light, allowing him to inspect them. However, the number of specks of light was really too many. They were colorful, and each speck of light had a different aura. A quarter of an hour. He firmly remembered that he only had a quarter of an hour. This was his only chance to choose. Not daring to think too much or waste any time, Long Haochen chose a cloud of light at random and quickly filtered the auras coming from the specks of light. He didn't know that each cloud of light was a parallel space, and those specks of light were the auras emitted by the magical beasts in the parallel space. The ancient array he was in was a powerful existence that communicated with parallel spaces. It was also the core of all the teleportation arrays on the Knight's holy mountain. Coldness, fear, resistance, anger. He felt all kinds of emotions, and each of them seemed to have a certain impact on his mental strength. However, the impact was not strong. With his powerful mental strength, his perception speed was extremely fast. Almost every instant, he would filter out the auras coming from dozens of specks of light. The benefits of having an abnormal innate mental strength were undoubtedly evident at this moment. If it were someone else, they probably wouldn't even be able to get a tenth of what he had chosen. As time passed, Long Houchen's mood became more and more anxious. There were too few auras that made him feel warmth. Most of the specks of light transmitted fear to him. It was as if they were afraid of him. A quarter of an hour was almost up, and Long Houchen clearly felt that everything in front of him was gradually beginning to become illusory. No, no, I must find my partner. Long Houchen roared unwillingly in his heart. His perception suddenly became a little clearer. Inside the cave, the old man had been observing Long Houchen. The reason why he only had a quarter of an hour to choose was that this was the limit of Long Houchen's own spiritual power. The reason why only the Grand Knight could come here to withstand the power of the array was that only spiritual power of this level could withstand the consumption. Moreover, it had to be a young man under the age of 20. Once the age exceeded the limit, the array would instantly backfire. At this moment, a quarter of an hour had passed, but the golden light emitted from Long Houchen's body did not completely disappear. His face looked a little pale, but he still gritted his teeth and endured. What a strong willpower! The old man was secretly amazed. He was very clear that although people who were in the array could not feel the consumption of their own spiritual power, as long as their body could not bear it, they would naturally leave the array. Only a strong willpower could stimulate their own potential and stay for a little longer. Found it. Just when Long Houchen's vision became illusory and his will became a little fuzzy, he subconsciously shifted his line of sight and fell on another light cloud. A strong sense of intimacy and joy instantly spread into the depths of his soul. Without any hesitation, Long Houchen instantly activated the mark of the equality contract. This mark was given to him by Yi Hua a long time ago. It was completely communicated and imprinted with spiritual power. As long as the other party agreed, it would succeed. If the other party did not agree, there would be no backfire. This was the most peaceful kind of magic contract. Time was tight, and he did not even have the time to be excited. The light flashed, and the communication was completed in an instant. The aura that was full of intimacy and joy seemed to be more anxious than him. The contract between the two parties was completed in the next moment. The specks of light gradually disappeared, and the large light cloud also faded. Everything once again became golden. In the blazing golden light, Long Houchen only felt that there was something extra in front of him. And this extra aura was full of intimacy to him. He succeeded. The one-eyed old man exclaimed in surprise. The body of glorious light gradually returned to normal, and the golden light patterns that filled the sky also disappeared. The old man's forehead was already sweating. It was obvious that supporting this huge transmission array was an enormous burden on him. Hearing that it was a success, Yi Hua rushed over at the first moment and arrived at the old man's side, looking towards the center. As the golden light faded, Long Houchen's figure gradually appeared in front of them. Apart from his somewhat pale complexion, there were no other changes. When his soul returned, the first thing Long Houchen felt was emptiness from the inside out. The spiritual power within his body was almost exhausted. The funnel vortex that was originally slowly rotating was almost stagnant. Even the light of the saint's spiritual stove had dimmed a lot. Fortunately, as a knight, he still had the existence of external spiritual power. Although he felt empty inside his body, it did not affect his normal movements. Subconsciously, Long Houchen cast his gaze towards the aura in front of him. He had spent so much effort to arrive at the knight's sacred mountain for a month. Wasn't it all for this? However, when Long Houchen saw his companion that had signed an equal contract with him, he was immediately dumbfounded. Not far away, Yi Hua and the one-eyed old man were also dumbfounded. Their sluggishness was not because the magical beast companion that Long Houchen had summoned was too powerful, but because it was a lizard that was about 1 meter long. Its body was covered with a thin layer of black scales. The shape of the scales was somewhat strange. The top was somewhat trapezoidal, but the two sides converged downwards in an arc, finally converging together. It was somewhat similar to the tower shield in the heavy knight's hand. Its head was no different from an ordinary lizard. A pair of small red eyes blinked as they looked at Long Houchen. It was indescribably intimate. Its tongue flicked in and out like a snake's tongue, and it seemed to be sensing Long Houchen's aura under his feet. If that was the case, Long Houchen would not have been so stunned. At most, he had summoned a level 2 ground fire lizard. However, this lizard's body was crisscrossed with at least a dozen wounds that flowed with dark red blood. Moreover, there was a large bulge on its neck that was almost as thick as its neck, coupled with the scars all over its body. Describing it as ugly could be considered a compliment. Long Houchen had never expected that after so much effort, what he had finally summoned was a seemingly crippled, or even malevolently mutated level 2 ground fire lizard. Ever since he started cultivating, everything had been smooth sailing. This was the first time he had suffered a setback. Woo! The ground fire lizard seemed to enjoy the aura on Long Houchen's body. It rubbed against him, and its pair of small red eyes were filled with intimacy. A bitter smile appeared on Long Houchen's face. Through the equality contract, he could sense the strength of this ground fire lizard, which was around level 2 mid-tier. Starlight Unicorn King, are you lying to me? You said that even you are not qualified to form a contract with my body of light. However, what is this before me? A level 2 ground fire lizard. Yihua silently walked to Long Houchen's side and pulled him up from the ground. He said calmly, "The setback you have suffered is nothing compared to what I experienced back then. If you can't find a mount partner that you like in the Holy Mountain, you will have to rely on hunting in the future. If you can reach the level of the Knight of the Seal, it will not be impossible for you to tame a giant dragon." With a clang, Yihua unsheathed the heavy sword on his back, and a sharp murderous aura arose. That ground fire lizard seemed to feel a threat to its life. Although it was covered in wounds, its body flashed and hid behind Long Houchen. It only revealed its bulging head and looked at Yihua with fear. "Teacher, what are you doing?" With a clang, Long Houchen only had time to draw his heavy sword and use the hilt to block Yihua's downward slash. Yihua was stunned. "Silly boy, are you going to take this little cripple away? You have to know that if you don't kill it, you will never be able to form an equality contract with a magical beast in the future." Long Houchen's eyes were filled with unwillingness, helplessness, and even a hint of anger. However, there was not a hint of killing intent. "Teacher, do you still remember the story of you and your mountain-shaking eagle companion? It chose you when you were in the most difficult situation. You treated it as a family member. Didn't I summon this little fellow at the very last moment? Although it is not strong and even has a disability, it is still my companion that has formed a contract with me. We are partners, so I have to protect its safety. Even if I don't have a real mount in this life, I can't abandon it just because I dislike it. It is not because I am afraid of leaving a shadow. From the moment we formed the contract, it was already my family." As he spoke, Long Houchen slowly squatted down and gently touched the head of the ground fire lizard. Its scales felt smooth and silky to the touch. They weren't hard at all. The ground fire lizard did not move. It was as if it had turned into a statue, staring blankly at Long Houchen with its small red eyes. "Don't worry, little fellow. I will not abandon you. I will not ask you to fight for me. I only hope that you can be my friend, okay?" The eyes of the ground fire lizard returned to its original size. It stuck out its tongue and licked Long Houchen's hand. Yihua sheathed his heavy sword and sighed. "Child, you are just too soft-hearted and sentimental." Long Houchen glanced at his teacher apologetically and said, "Teacher, don't worry. I'll definitely work hard in my cultivation. Even without the help of my mount companion, I definitely won't lose to the ghost warrior. Teacher, my internal spiritual power is almost exhausted. Can you help heal my companion's injuries?" What else could Yihua say? He could only silently nod and said, Okay. Just as his hand was shining with a golden light and he was about to release a recovery skill, the one-eyed elder, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly shouted, "Wait!" Long Houchen and Yi Hua looked at him at the same time. The one-eyed elder said in a deep voice, "If you don't want it to die, don't heal it." Long Houchen stood up and asked in confusion, "Senior, why is that?" The elder's single eye looked at him seriously and smiled. "You are good, really good. In you, I see the compassion and benevolence of a knight. Unfortunately, although you are kind and don't mind this little guy, I'm afraid you still can't take it away. Because it has a dark constitution. Once you use light attribute skills to heal it, it will only cause harm." "Dark constitution?" Long Houchen said in surprise. The elder nodded and said, "Among the magical beasts summoned through the teleportation circle, some of them come from a level similar to the abyss. No matter what their attributes are, they are born with a dark constitution. All magical beasts with a dark constitution, as long as they leave this cave, will immediately be killed by the light array here. In this place, it cannot be sent back to its original place through a contract. No magic array will work here. Although I am very curious as to why a magical beast with a dark constitution would get close to you and even form a contract with you, I have to say that coming here is almost equivalent to seeking its own death." "What?" Long Houchen was shocked, and the ground fire lizard also seemed to understand his word. It stuck close to Long Houchen and trembled, its pair of red eyes filled with fear. The elder said calmly, "Give it up. This is not what you want, and it will not affect your future cultivation. Even if you hunt magical beasts, it will be much stronger than this mutated ground fire lizard." Long Houchen lowered his head and looked into the eyes of the ground fire lizard. He had a contract with it, so he could feel the ground fire lizard's current emotions. This little guy seemed to understand their conversation, and its emotions were filled with fear, loneliness, pain, and unwillingness. Long Houchen naturally wanted a powerful mount companion, but as he felt the changes in the ground fire lizard's emotions, he was reminded of the time when his parents left Mount Odin at the same time. At that time, didn't he feel the same way? "It is my companion. How can I just abandon it like this? Senior, is there really no other way? I can't just abandon it." Long Houchen bent down and carried the ground fire lizard, ignoring the filth and dark red blood flowing on its body. The ground fire lizard in Long Houchen's arms was clearly much calmer, and it pressed its head tightly against his chest, not moving an inch. Like a child that had found its kin, its two not-so-thick front claws clung to Long Houchen's shoulders, and its claws clung tightly to his clothes. The elder hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "You are a kind-hearted child. It's not that there is no way, but it will cause great harm to your body." Long Houchen carried the ground fire lizard that weighed only about 25 kilograms, and felt its heartbeat. He pursed his lips and said, "Please guide me, Senior." The elder said in a deep voice, "If you want it to leave this place alive, there is only one way, and that is to change its physique. Only by changing the darkness into light can it leave safely." Yi Hua said in shock, "Senior, that doesn't seem possible. How can the darkness physique be changed into light?" The elder said, "Of course not for us, but it is possible for him. With the existence of the equal contract, this ground fire lizard is much more receptive to the energy he transmits. However, this child needs to infuse his blood that is filled with light attribute into the ground fire lizard's body, and completely wash away its darkness physique." Yi Hua sucked in a breath of cold air, and a puzzled look appeared on his ice-cold face. "How much blood is needed to achieve this?" The elder shook his head and said, "I don't know either. It depends on how much the ground fire lizard can accept his blood, and also the intensity of the light energy in his blood. But regardless of whether it succeeds or not, the child's essence will be greatly damaged. In my opinion, it is really not worth it for such a second-grade magical beast." Long Houchen, Yi Hua turned to Long Haochen, and just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted for the first time. Teacher, you don't have to say anything. I have already made up my mind. The contract has been established, and this is my fate with it. If I abandon it just because it is weak, and even endanger its life, then how can I be worthy of being a guardian knight? Long Haochen said resolutely as he hugged the ground fire lizard tightly in his arms. He bowed slightly to the elder and said, Senior, please advise me on what to do. The elder sighed and said, Child, your temperament is really rare. Although you did not obtain a powerful mount companion this time, your future is still limitless. The method is very simple. Activate the equal contract between the two of you, and then drip your blood into the contract rune on its body. Thank you, Senior. Long Haochen replied, and slowly squatted down, placing the ground fire lizard on the ground. The ground fire lizard raised its head and looked at Long Haochen, and it kept making woo-woo sounds. Don't be afraid. I will do my best to save you. You are already my companion. If I can't even protect you, then what kind of guardian knight am I? Long Haochen sat cross-legged in front of the ground fire lizard. With a thought, he activated the equal contract between the two of them. The equal contract was also known as the equal summoning contract. It was mainly dominated by humans. Activating the contract was equivalent to summoning a magical beast. A purple light lit up on Long Haochen's forehead. The purple light gradually expanded, and turned into a purple light spot the size of a fingernail, faintly discernible on his forehead. The one-eyed elder said to Yi Hua in surprise, That's strange. Their contract rune seems to be very complicated. The stronger the contract between a human and a magical beast, the more complicated the contract rune would be. Yi Hua said doubtfully, No. Isn't it just a simple spot of light? The elder shook his head and said, No, it's not that simple. The rune is covered by that purple light. Although I can't see what it is, it's definitely not that simple. Look at that ground fire lizard. As Long Haochen activated the contract rune appeared on his forehead, and it also appeared on the body of the ground fire lizard. Generally speaking, no matter if it was a human or a magical beast, the contract rune would appear on the head. However, this ground fire lizard was different. A purple light pattern with a diameter of more than a foot slowly appeared on its back, almost covering its entire back. The dense purple light was like a layer of fog covering it. Although it was many times larger than the rune on Long Haochen's head, it was still difficult to see what it looked like under the purple fog. Long Haochen said gently to the ground fire lizard, Little guy, don't be afraid. I will use the light attribute in my blood to change your physique. I don't know if it will be very painful, but you must endure it, okay? The ground fire lizard actually nodded at him in a very intelligent manner after hearing his words. Its pair of red eyes were filled with gratitude and kindness. Long Haochen raised both of his hands and flicked his left index finger. Instantly, a faint golden light lit up on his fingertip. The golden light was about 2 inches long. Releasing spiritual energy was the symbol of a grade 4 Great Knight. Although a grade 3 Knight could also release spiritual energy through a skill like Light Severing Sword, it was obviously not on the same level as a grade 4 Great Knight who could release spiritual energy without using a skill. With a flash of golden light, Long Haochen cut his right wrist. Instantly, fresh blood gushed out and almost instantly turned into a stream of blood that flowed down into the huge rune on the back of the ground fire lizard. Woo! Accompanied by a miserable cry, the ground fire lizard suddenly raised its head, its body trembling violently. Its 4 claws gripped the ancient elven runes on the ground, forcefully stabilizing its body and preventing it from moving. The old man's single eye revealed a look of surprise again. This ground fire lizard is really intelligent. It seems like it isn't as simple as it looks. Yi Hua smiled bitterly. Let's hope so. He really wanted to stop Long Haochen from doing this. A grade 2 ground fire lizard really wasn't worth it. Moreover, the monster hunter's trials were in half a year's time. Long Houchen's vitality was greatly damaged at this time, and he didn't know if he could recover in half a year. However, could he really stop this disciple of his? He couldn't. In his opinion, Long Houchen's spirit of not giving up and not giving up was even more precious than being the first monster hunter's trials. Long Houchen's blood dripped onto the rune on the back of the ground fire lizard and instantly dissolved. Rings of faint golden light spread out from the purple rune and covered the entire body of the ground fire lizard. Every time the golden light flowed past, the ground fire lizard's body would tremble violently as if it was electrocuted. But it still didn't move. At the same time, as the layers of golden light flowed, the dense dark aura and ferocious aura gradually dissipated from the ground fire lizard's body. Chapter 14. Long Houchen stared at the changes in the ground fire lizard with a determined gaze. His right hand was already clenched into a fist. Even though blood was still flowing, his hand was very stable. Layers of golden light constantly washed over the ground fire lizard's body. The wounds on its body kept emitting white smoke, and there were obvious signs of festering. Clearly, the ground fire lizard with a dark physique was suffering from the impact of the light energy. If it wasn't for the equality contract that Long Houchen had formed with it, the immense light energy contained in Long Houchen's Son of Light physique would have destroyed it. The muscles on the sides of the ground fire lizard's cheeks bulged, and traces of blood seeped out from the side of its mouth. Even though its body was trembling violently, its 4 claws were still firmly planted on the ground, not allowing itself to move. It raised its head high and looked at Long Houchen. The man and beast looked at each other. Apart from determination, there was also a trace of warmth in their gazes. Yes, they had captured the warmth of kinship in each other's eyes. Blood continued to flow, and Long Houchen's face became paler and paler. Weakness was starting to appear. Even though he already possessed a spiritual energy of up to 1,000 points, he was still a human after all. A loss of more than 1/3 of a human's blood would be fatal. And with his current rate of blood loss, it wouldn't be long before he reached this limit. Time ticked by. Be it Yi Hua or the one-eyed old man, both of them were extremely nervous. The one-eyed old man had been guarding the sacred mountain for many years, but this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. There were a few possible outcomes. The first was that the ground fire lizard couldn't withstand the baptism of the light blood and died. The second was that it completed the baptism of the light blood and became a magical beast with a light physique. In that case, Long Houchen's goal would be achieved. The third was that the ground fire lizard couldn't withstand the pain and ran away on its own. Then, everything would be in vain. The fourth was what the one-eyed old man and Yi Hua didn't want to see. That was if Long Houchen lost too much blood and couldn't hold on. In that case, not only would the ground fire lizard not be able to complete its evolution, but Long Houchen's life would also be in danger due to the loss of blood. Long Houchen's originally stable right hand gradually began to tremble. His originally fair skin had now appeared a sickly pale, and the original luster had long since disappeared. The blood flowing from his wrist had already started to slow down. Apart from the wound healing, it was also a sign that he was losing a large amount of blood. But strangely, the ground fire lizard was no longer trembling. The originally pitch-black scales on his body gradually gained a faint layer of golden light, and the rotting wounds on his body also healed at an astonishing speed. Clearly, its body was and its body was Long. Long of the Long Fire Lizard. The most peculiar change was the contract rune between Long Houchen and the ground fire lizard. Ground. Of the purple light. The light haze and the faint, the rune. And the run, ling of the rune. Rune ding. Light ling's demon. And of. And light. The long of. The of the field. Long Houchen's body swayed and he almost fell. Not good, Houchen can't hold on any longer. Yi Hua's heartstrings were already stretched taut, and he couldn't help but want to rush forward. Wait a little longer. The one-eyed old man raised his hand and stopped him from rushing forward. Long Houchen raised his left hand and pressed it on the ground fire lizard's neck to support his body. At this moment, he could no longer see anything clearly. The intense dizziness brought about by the loss of blood made him feel like he could fall at any moment. Never abandon, never give up. Long Houchen clenched his teeth and silently repeated these words in his heart. Even though he had only interacted with the ground fire lizard for a short period of time, this was the first time he felt the effects of the equality contract. That closeness like a family member, as well as the ground fire lizard's fear towards him, all touched his heart deeply. Long Houchen didn't have any siblings. For the past few years, Lin Xin had always treated him like an older sister. When he made the final decision just now, it was because he was wondering what Lin Xin would do if he was in such a predicament. Partners. What is a partner? A true partner who goes through thick and thin together. Looking at the ground fire lizard's eyes with blurred vision, Long Houchen no longer felt that it was ugly. At this moment, Long Houchen had lost more than a third of his blood. If he wasn't a Grand Knight, his life would be in danger. Even though the one-eyed old man stopped Yihua, he was also prepared to act at any moment. Once Long Houchen's life force showed signs of weakening, he would definitely act at once, to stop him from continuing. Roar! An excited roar rang out, and a layer of golden light emerged from the ground fire lizard's body. All of the dark aura and ferocious aura had already disappeared. A ray of golden light shot out from the one-eyed old man's hand and landed on the wound on Long Houchen's wrist, instantly healing it. Long Houchen's body went limp and he fell to the ground. However, he didn't faint because he wanted to see if he had really succeeded. A wet tongue gently licked his face, and that pair of red eyes were filled with vigor, as though they were embedded with 2 rubies. The purplish gold contract rune on the back of the ground fire lizard disappeared, and the wound on the ground fire lizard's body had completely disappeared. The shield-shaped scales emitted a layer of faint golden luster. Yihua sighed inwardly and walked forward slowly. He wanted to feed Long Houchen some pills that could strengthen his corporeity. He knew that even though Long Houchen had succeeded, he had paid a huge price. With such a loss of blood essence, it would probably take a year and a half to recover. Roar! The ground fire lizard suddenly let out a low roar at Yihua, and its pair of red eyes were filled with hostility. A huge fireball was spat out of his mouth, heading straight for Yihua. Huh! Yihua was taken aback. A spiritual barrier rose up, and with a boom, it blocked the fireball. Don't get close to it, it seems to be doing something, the one-eyed old man shouted. The ground fire lizard's fireball stopped Yihua in his tracks, and its gaze landed on the weakened Long Houchen's face again. At this moment, a ray of purple light suddenly emerged from its back, heading straight for the top of the cave. This ray of purple light was released in a straight line, as though its back had suddenly split open. After the light pattern appeared, the ground fire lizard raised its head again, but at this moment, its pair of red eyes rippled with a faint hint of purple. This hint of purple was cold and noble. The purple light pattern first extended backwards, all the way to its tail, and then surged upwards, reaching its neck in an instant. At this point, the purple light pattern no longer extended upwards in a straight line, but split into 2. One extended to the top of its head, and the other extended to the protrusion on its neck. A strange wave of spiritual power quietly rippled, and the ground fire lizard's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of pain, but more than that, it was excitement. Its body began to tremble violently. Unstable spiritual power ripples constantly surged out from the sudden appearance of the purple light pattern, and this spiritual power ripple had clearly surpassed the level of a second-tier mid-tier magical beast. Evolution? This ground fire lizard is about to evolve, the one-eyed old man exclaimed. It wasn't rare for magical beasts to evolve, but generally speaking, only magical beasts of 5th tier and above had the possibility of evolving. This ground fire lizard was only a second-tier magical beast. It actually evolved after absorbing Long Houchen's blood. With a poof, a thick purple current suddenly erupted from the ground fire lizard's body, and immediately after, its originally 1-meter-long body began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. It wasn't just the size of its body that was changing. The scales on its body were also changing in a strange way. The originally smooth scales gradually had some protrusions, and a thick texture appeared. The most peculiar thing was the protrusion on its neck. That protrusion actually extended along with the expansion of its body. With a poof, the ground fire lizard's body suddenly stiffened, and immediately after, from the protrusion on its neck, a brand new head popped out and stood side by side with the original head. At this moment, its body had also extended from 1 meter to 2 meters. The purple light suddenly retracted, and everything seemed to have stopped. The purple light pattern extended all the way to the top of the second head, and on both heads, there were some protrusions, which made them look even more ferocious. From the looks of it, the second head that appeared along with the evolution was no different from the first head. The only difference was the color of its eyes. The second head's eyes were golden. After the evolution, the limbs of the ground fire lizard were obviously much thicker, and the armor on its back was also thicker. Especially the change to its 2 heads, it showed that the protrusion on its neck was not some kind of disability. After completing the evolution, there was another protrusion at the base of the neck of the second head, but it wasn't as big as the original protrusion, and it was now the size of a fist. Middle tier, fourth tier? Yi Hua and the one-eyed old man looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. Every level of magical beast was divided into beginner, intermediate, advanced, and pinnacle. From second tier intermediate to fourth tier, this was an evolution that spanned 8 stages. Not to mention seeing it, they had never even heard of it. Usually, when magical beasts evolved, there would at most be some slight changes to their bodies, and their strength would increase slightly. It was normal for them to advance from intermediate to advanced, and they had never heard of any evolution that spanned levels. But the ground fire lizard in front of them had completed its evolution. No, it could no longer be called a ground fire lizard. The attributes of its second head were different from the first head, and it clearly exuded the aura of light. A 2-headed, dual-attribute lizard-type magical beast. What kind of species was this? Especially with such a leap in evolution, it was sufficient to show that this ground fire lizard wasn't some useless magical beast. Furthermore, Yi Hua had also noticed the new protrusion on its neck. Could it be that this ground fire lizard could grow a 3rd head in the future and evolve again? Yi Hua swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked the one-eyed old man beside him, "Senior, do you recognize this magical beast?" The old man shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "I don't know. No one can recognize all magical beasts, especially one that was summoned from another parallel space. It looks like this little fellow has picked up a treasure. As long as this lizard could evolve one more time, he would already have an excellent mount. What is it doing?" Just as they were talking, the 2-headed lizard that had completed its evolution slowly lowered its 2 heads and looked at Long Houchen, who was also shocked by its evolution. Its long tail swung from the back to the front, and the second head bit the tip of the tail. Immediately, light purple blood flowed out. Along with the evolution, the color of its blood actually changed. The contract rune appeared once again. The rune on the back of the 2-headed lizard didn't grow bigger because of its evolution. Furthermore, this time, it was obvious that it was the one who initiated the rune. Its long tail flicked lightly, and the tip of the tail that was flowing with light purple blood directly pierced the contract rune on Long Houchen's forehead. Long Houchen's body stiffened, and he only felt a scorching warm current entering his forehead. That scorching feeling instantly spread throughout his entire body. Reverse feeding, it's using its own blood to reverse feed Long Houchen. Yi Hua jumped up in shock. The higher the level of a magical beast, the more intelligent it was. Only magical beasts above level 6 could gradually develop intelligence that was not lower than that of humans. The two-headed lizard in front of them was so intelligent that it actually learned from Long Houchen and used its own blood to make up for the loss of Long Houchen's blood essence. The two-headed lizard's two heads, two red and two gold eyes, gazed at Long Houchen tenderly. The two-headed lizard's body swayed slightly. A layer of net-like light purple pattern began to spread from Long Houchen's forehead to his entire body. He felt as if his entire body was in a furnace, and he couldn't tell if it was painful or comfortable. He could only vaguely feel that his blood vessels were undergoing earth-shattering changes due to this scorching heat. The original feeling of weakness also gradually disappeared in this scorching heat. A layer of faint blood-red light quietly spread out from the two-headed lizard's body, forming a red halo. Then, the halo slowly converged into a single point, and finally fell into the contract rune on its back. Long Houchen and the two-headed lizard trembled at the same time. There seemed to be an additional layer of connection between the two of them. This is a blood contract that is even more extreme than a master-servant contract. The one-eyed old man cried out involuntarily. A blood contract where the master dies and the servant dies. This two-headed lizard is repaying a debt of gratitude. Yihua also knew about the blood contract. This kind of contract was extremely extreme. It wouldn't cause any harm to Long Houchen, but it would be a fatal restriction to the two-headed lizard. If Long Houchen died, then the two-headed lizard would definitely die as well. But if it died, it wouldn't affect Long Houchen in the slightest. According to the legends, the blood contract had many other special functions. It could even lend its own abilities to its master. However, there were simply no magical beasts that were willing to sign such a contract. Therefore, very few people knew exactly how profound the blood contract was. The one-eyed old man took a deep breath and said slowly, "No matter whether this two-headed lizard can evolve again in the future, the relationship between it and your disciple is far more intimate than that of the other knight. Perhaps this can be considered as a blessing in disguise." The light gradually faded away, and the light purple pattern on Long Houchen's body quietly disappeared into his skin. The two-headed lizard retracted its tail and walked to his side. It used its two big heads to gently stroke his leg. "What kind of partner do I have now? My name is Houchen. You can follow my name and be called Haoyue." Chapter 15. Bang bang bang. Someone knocked on the door. "Little brother, we're leaving. Are you ready?" Lin Xian knocked on the door in an unladylike manner while calling out, "Yes, yes." The door opened and Long Houchen walked out of the room. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. "Wow, so handsome." Long Houchen wore a white warrior suit with arrow sleeves embroidered with silver dragon patterns. It was clean and neat, with a small silver dragon embroidered on both sides of his collar. In the middle of his belt, there was a light stone that emitted a faint aura of light. Long black hair draped over his shoulders. His pale golden eyes were clear and transparent like the stars in the sky. His lips were red and his teeth were white. His skin was as smooth as jade. He had a high nose bridge and slightly sunken eyes. It was impossible to find any flaws on him. In just half a year, Long Houchen had grown a little taller. His figure was more slender. He didn't have exaggerated muscles, but his figure was well proportioned with the perfect golden ratio. Long Houchen, who usually wore the simplest clothes, was already stunning. Now that he had changed into this slightly gorgeous warrior suit, even women would be jealous. Long Houchen adjusted his clothes awkwardly. "Sister, there's no need to dress so formally. I'm not used to it." This set of clothes was specially made by Lin Xian for him. Other than ordinary clothes, Long Houchen only had the standard warrior suit issued by the Haoyue Branch Palace. "How can you not be used to it? Little brother, white suits you so well. It's so handsome. Sigh, why couldn't you have been born a few years earlier? What a loss, what a loss. After spending so much time with you, your sister's standards have increased. If I can't find a man in the future, I'll take you for myself." Lin Xian sized up Long Houchen with her shining eyes while threatening him with her fists. At this moment, two heads popped out from behind Long Houchen and rubbed his calves while making woo-woo sounds. Long Houchen bent down and patted the heads of the two lizards. "You can't go tonight. Stay at home and watch the house. Be obedient. I'll bring some dried fish back for you to eat later." This weird-looking fellow with two lizard heads was obviously the magical beast companion that Long Houchen had brought back from the Knight's sacred mountain, the twin-headed lizard named Haoyue. The Haoyue had become a new species, and was recorded by the Knight's sacred mountain. It had been half a year since Long Houchen returned. Most magical beast mounts had their own living quarters, and only when the Knight needed them would they be summoned to his side through a contract. However, Haoyue was different. It shamelessly followed Long Houchen, and refused to return to its original space. The fusion of their bloodlines, coupled with the feelings of never abandoning and never giving up, made their relationship far closer than that of other knight and mount companions. The first benefit of the blood contract was something that Long Houchen had already felt when he first returned, and that was the telepathy. Usually, the equality contract would only allow the magical beast to sense the knight's thoughts and act accordingly. However, the blood contract would allow them to sense each other. Although Haoyue could not speak, Long Houchen could always feel the changes in its emotions. It was the same even if they were far apart. Hearing the word dried fish, Haoyue's eyes widened at the same time, and it even looked at each other in a very human-like manner. Its neck straightened, and it nodded at Long Houchen repeatedly. It looked like it was about to drool. Long Houchen hugged their heads and said, "Then I'll leave first. I'll be back soon." As a member of Haoyue's branch, Long Houchen had an income of 5 gold coins every month, but he could not save any money at all. All the money was used to buy food for Haoyue. This guy was very gluttonous, and he especially liked to eat fish. His favorite dish was spiced dried fish. So much so that Long Houchen had become a genuine member of the Moonlight clan. Sometimes, he even needed Lin Xian's help. As time passed, Long Houchen was surprised to find that both of Haoyue's heads had independent thoughts. When he first came back from the Knight's holy mountain, this feeling was not strong. Half a year had passed, and he increasingly found that the red-eyed head's character was slightly more violent, while the golden-eyed head's character was much gentler. After getting Long Houchen's promise, Haoyue happily went back to his room. He swung his big tail and closed the door. Lin Xian said with some envy, "Houchen, Haoyue is too smart. He sticks to you all day like a child." Long Houchen laughed and said, "Yes, he's like my younger brother. No, I should say that he's my 2 younger brothers. I really can't do anything about them. Sister, let's go." The two left Haoyue's branch and walked on the street. Long Houchen asked, "Sister, what's going on today? Why did Uncle invite us to dinner?" Previously, when Lin Xian brought clothes to Long Houchen, she only told him that her father would invite them to dinner today, and that he had some matters to discuss with them. As time passed, Long Houchen now knew that Lin Xian's father was Haoyue City's military chief, Liao Xiao, and Lin Jialu's father was Haoyue City's consul, Lin Yingjia. All the cities within the Temple League's jurisdiction were under the jurisdiction of the consul, and military chief was in charge of military affairs. Lin Xian smiled and said, "Today, it's not only my father who invited us to dinner. There's also Uncle Lin, Uncle Nalin, and Magic Temple's Haoyue Branch Temple Master, Uncle Baiyu. The Warrior Temple's Haoyue Branch Temple Master, Uncle Chunhua." Long Houchen was shocked. The 5 people Lin Xian mentioned were all big shots in Haoyue City. They were also the core of the city. Haoyue City was a medium-sized city. Among the 6 temples, only the Knight, Warrior, and Magic Temple's branches were established here. Together with the consul and military chief, they could almost decide everything in Haoyue City. How could Long Houchen not be surprised that these 5 big shots invited them to dinner together? "Sister, why?" Long Houchen asked, puzzled. Lin Xian said, Naturally, it's for the upcoming Monster Hunters trials. We're all going to be participants, so they want to tell us something. As they spoke, they had already arrived at Haoyue City's administrative hall. Lin Xian pulled Long Haochen directly up to the third floor. A staff member in charge of greeting them led them to a side hall. Long Haochen and Lin Xian clearly came a bit late. There were only 2 empty seats left on the round table filled with exquisite dishes. It was obviously prepared for them. Long Haochen's eyes swept across the crowd. He found that apart from Nailan Shu, there was another person he knew. Wasn't it Lin Jialu, who he had fought before? Lin Xian naturally also saw her. The 2 women looked at each other, snorted at the same time, and turned their heads away, no one paying attention to the other. However, when Lin Jialu's eyes passed over Long Haochen, she couldn't help but stare blankly. A dignified middle-aged man's face sank. "Xen heir, don't be rude." Obviously, this was Lin Xian's father, Haoyue City's military chief, Li Aoxiao. Lin Xian stuck out her tongue, and then greeted the people who were already sitting there. "Hello, Uncle Lin, Uncle Nailan, Uncle Bai, Uncle Chen." Several middle-aged men nodded one after another. Long Haochen also followed Lin Xian's greeting and got to know these big shots of Haoyue City one by one. In addition to these people and Lin Jialu, there were also 2 sturdy young men. They took the initiative to greet Lin Xian, and Lin Xian and Long Haochen also returned the greeting. Of these 2 young men, the taller one was called Chen Si, and the shorter one was called Chen Chen. They were a pair of brothers from the warrior temple. Li Aoxiao looked at Long Haochen with a smile and said, "I've long heard about you from Xian heir. You're indeed a talented young man." In fact, when Long Haochen and Lin Xian arrived, almost everyone's eyes were focused on him. Lin Xian and Lin Jialu were also beauties, but Long Haochen's appearance overshadowed their brilliance. "Uncle Li is too kind." Long Haochen bowed slightly and replied politely. Lin Yinjia said, "Brother Li, let's start the feast first. Let these children eat first, then we'll talk business." Li Aoxiao said, "That's right. Everyone, don't stand on ceremony. Let's eat." Apart from Long Haochen, everyone else had a rough idea of what they were going to talk about today. Although the atmosphere wasn't warm, it was still comfortable. Especially the 2 brothers, Chen Si and Chen Chen. They wolfed down their food. Their appetite was even more astonishing than Lin Xian's. Of course, Long Haochen obviously didn't dare to say that to Lin Xian. They just ate and didn't drink. Soon, most of the food went into the stomachs of the youngsters. Li Aoxiao said, "The Monster Hunters selection competition is about to begin. The 5 of you are the elites selected by the 3 temples in Haoyue City to participate. This meal is to celebrate your departure, and at the same time there are some things that you should take note of." The main event had begun. Long Haochen put down the cutlery in his hand and listened attentively. Lin Yinjia said, "The Monster Hunters selection competition has been around for a long time, and it's extremely important to our Temple League. It can be said that the reason why the Temple League hasn't been invaded by the demons for thousands of years is because of the existence of the Monster Hunters. Moreover, almost all the higher-ups of the Alliance and the 6th Great Temple have participated in the Monster Hunters competition. How about this? The 3 Temple Masters will first introduce the children you've selected. Brother Chen, you first." The Temple Master of the Warrior Temple's Haoyue Temple, Chen Chunhua, was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. After hearing Lin Yinjia's words, he nodded and said, "Chen Si and Chen Chen, these 2 children are the elites of our temple in recent years. Chen Si is 24 years old this year, just below the 25 years old threshold for the Monster Hunters selection competition. He's a level 2 Great Combat Master. He's an orthodox shield warrior and is very good at defense." The warrior temple was similar to Knights Templars, and a Great Combat Master was a level 4 profession, which was equivalent to a Great Knight. The two brothers, Chen Si and Chen Chen, looked very simple and honest. When they heard Chen Chunhua mention them, they already stood up. Chen Chunhua clearly liked these two disciples and said proudly, Chen Chen is 2 years younger than Chen Si. They're blood brothers, and he's trained as a berserker, which is better at attacking. He's currently a level 1 great combat master. Li Aoxiao and Lin Yingjia's faces showed obvious surprise and surprise. The Monster Hunters selection competition only accepted youths below the age of 25, and the minimum cultivation requirement was level 3. It was indeed a pleasant surprise that these two youths from the Warrior Temple were able to reach level 4. For any city to send youths to join the Monster Hunters competition, it was a great honor for the city itself. If they could get a good ranking in the selection competition, the city's magistrate, chief of military staff, and branch temple masters would be rewarded. Li Aoxiao said with satisfaction, very good, very good. You're young and promising. I hope you can enter the final stage of the selection competition. The Magic Temple's Haoyue branch temple master, Bai Yu, smiled and said, there shouldn't be a problem for them to reach level 4. With the protection of these two children, they should have no problem entering the selection competition. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Jiao Lu. She's an absolute genius in our magic temple. She's 21 years old and specializes in ice magic. She's already a level 4 great magician. Listening to Bai Yu's introduction, although Lin Yingjia tried his best to control his expression, the pride in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Li Aoxiao praised, Jiao Lu is really becoming more and more promising. She's definitely the future hope of our Haoyue city. Hearing her father praise Lin Jiaolu, Lin Xin was immediately dissatisfied and couldn't help but say, Dad, don't boost other people's morale and diminish your own prestige. In any case, your daughter is also a level 3 great knight. I'm younger than her by 3 months. Li Aoxiao glared at her, you talk too much. Lin Yingjia chuckled and said, you two girls. It's been so long, can't you forget a little conflict? However, you must remember that before participating in the Demon Hunt selection, you must work together in order to obtain the qualifications to participate. It's very dangerous, you can't fight when the time comes. Lin Xin and Lin Jiaolu looked at each other and immediately turned their heads away. Nailin Shu laughed and said, Xin has already said her cultivation base, majoring in punishment knight. As for Haochen, I must keep his cultivation base a secret, but I can tell you his age. Haochen is 14 years old this year. Majoring in Guardian Knight. 14 years old? Except for Li Aoxiao who knew in advance, the others couldn't help but be surprised. Lin Yingjia frowned and said in a deep voice, Temple Master Nailin, you're not joking, right? How can you let a 14-year-old child participate in the selection competition? Don't you know that before participating, they must go to the border and kill at least 5 demons to qualify? Nailin Shu calmly said, This child's teacher is Yi Hua, the zombie-faced knight Azura of our sub-temple. Everyone knows his character. He said that his precious disciple is qualified to participate in the Monster Hunters selection competition, so it's certainly not a lie. We, the Knights Templars, will never joke around with the life of such a talented child. Lin Yingjia still frowned and looked at Li Aoxiao. Chen Chunhua and Nailin Shu have a good personal relationship, so they didn't say anything. But Bai Yu calmly said, Fatty Nailin, you have to know, this is not only related to his life. If there is a situation in the team, it will even lead to the team's destruction. Nailin Shu snorted and said, Don't worry, although I don't know what level Haochen's cultivation has reached, I can tell you that in this Monster Hunters selection competition, he will definitely enter the finals and compete with the other 5 temples. Nailin Shu's words were resolute and decisive, showing his great confidence. Long Haochen sat there without saying a word. Yi Hua warned him not to easily reveal his current cultivation base, at least not before officially participating in the Monster Hunters selection competition. So, he could only keep his mouth shut. At this time, Lin Jialu suddenly said, "Dad, uncles, I believe Uncle Nalan's words. Because I have competed with little brother long before. He is very strong." Hearing Lin Jialu speak for Long Houchen, Lin Xian's eyes suddenly showed a hint of vigilance, and she moved her chair towards Long Houchen. Li Aoxiao nodded and said, "I have also heard Xen talk about Houchen's strength. I believe he does have the ability to participate in this competition. The qualification for the Monster Hunters selection competition and the competition process are very strict. If you want to participate in the main competition, you must first obtain an admission ticket. Brother Lin has already said it. The 5 of you must through your own efforts, work together, and each kill 5 demons. Only then will you be qualified to go to the Temple League to participate in the main competition. The Alliance has already sent the supervisor in charge of our Haoyue Temple to supervise you to obtain the qualification to participate in the competition. In this process, no matter what danger you encounter, the supervisor will not intervene, and will only let you fend for yourself, unless you take the initiative to ask him for help. However, if you take the initiative to ask for help, it will mean that you have lost the qualification to participate in this competition. Our Haoyue city is located in the southeast of the Alliance, only a little over 400 miles away from the border. We have discussed carefully, and have already planned a route for you to infiltrate the demons. You must remember, retreat after the first strike, and do not continue to fight. If you really encounter a crisis that you cannot handle, then you must ask for help from the supervisor, even if it means losing the qualification to participate. Your lives are the most important. We have already handed the map to the supervisor, and you will set off tomorrow. You represent the Haoyue Temple League, and also Haoyue City. Here, we wish you all the best in this competition." As he spoke, Li Aoxiao, Lin Yinjia, and the other 3 temple lords all stood up and raised the teacups in their hands. Long Houchen and the other 4 temple lords hurriedly stood up and saluted the 5 leaders of Haoyue City. Everyone drank the tea in their cups together. Lin Yinjia said in a deep voice, "Ever since the demons appeared and entered the Dark Ages 6,000 years ago, we humans have been struggling for survival. It took us more than 2,000 years to stabilize our current territory. The demons are our mortal enemies, and every enemy we kill is a contribution to the protection of humanity. Although our Haoyue city is not a big city, participating in the Monster Hunters trials is a big event that happens once every 5 years. In order to make it easier for you to achieve good results, we have prepared some gifts for you. As long as you can complete the pre-competition admission mission and enter the main competition, these gifts will belong to you forever. Follow me." The administrative hall of Haoyue City had a total of 4 floors. Under Lin Yinjia and Li Aoxiao's lead, everyone came to a room on the top floor that was guarded by 10 warriors. There was no furniture in the room, only a few wide wooden tables, but a lot of equipment was neatly arranged on them. Seeing these equipment, the 2 brothers, Chen Si and Chen Chen's breathing became noticeably faster. Lin Xian and Lin Jialu were much more normal. Their families were rich and did not lack equipment. There was a hint of surprise in Long Houchen's eyes, but he was still very calm. Years ago, Long Xingwu once told Long Houchen that equipment was part of the strength of any expert from the 6 great temples. But any equipment would only be more valuable if it was obtained through one's own efforts. The Radiant Shield could be considered as Long Houchen's first real equipment, and right now, he was obviously going to have a full set of equipment for the first time. There was a lot of equipment on the table, and obviously not just one set for each person, so there was a lot of room for choice. Lin Yinjia smiled and said, "Although these equipment are not high level, they are still much better than the common goods on the market. In view of your current cultivation, most of the equipment you have chosen is amplification equipment, so that you can directly use the effect in battle. You can choose for yourselves now. However, you can only choose one set of equipment for the same position." Lin Jialu shook her head and said, I have my own equipment, there is no need to choose. She was the daughter of an archon, and her family ran a magic equipment shop, so naturally there was no need for her to choose again. Lin Xian also shook her head at the same time, indicating that she did not need it either. Lin Yinjia and Li Aoxiao had clearly guessed that this would happen. These equipment were originally prepared for Long Haochen and the Chen brothers. The Chen brothers were already a little impatient, and under the signal of the warrior branch temple master Chen Chunhua, the two quickly walked up to choose. Lin Xian nudged Long Haochen, indicating that he should hurry up and choose, lest the good ones were picked by others. The quality of close combat equipment mainly depended on three aspects. The first was naturally the material used. The better the material, the stronger the equipment made. The second was the craftsmanship. The same materials, but made by blacksmiths of different levels, would have a considerable difference in quality. The third was the enchantment. A magic equipment was worth at least 5 times more than a normal equipment, and if the magic effect on it was strong enough, the value would be even higher. The equipment from low to high were normal equipment, alloy equipment, magic equipment, spirit equipment, glory equipment, legendary equipment, epic equipment, immortal equipment, and mythical equipment. For the sake of the young people participating in the Monster Hunters, the equipment Haoyue City brought out was carefully selected. All of them were magic equipment. Although they were only the most common low-level enchantment to enhance attributes, any one of them would cost hundreds of gold coins on the market. Spirit equipment, which was a level higher than magic equipment, had to come with at least one skill. Equipment of that level must be worth thousands of gold coins. As a shield warrior, Chen Si did not hesitate to choose a heavy set of full body armor, followed by a thick and heavy tower shield. The armor and shield were reinforced with earth magic patterns, so their defense was the strongest among the equipment in front of them. The weapon was much simpler, just a long sword with the effect of increasing speed. Chen Chen's choice reflected the different emphasis of a warrior. He wore a fire element light armor and a pair of fire element long sword. Once activated with spiritual power, a layer of flames would appear on his body, accompanied by a fire element attack. This would further increase the attack power of his berserker. Long Haochen also chose a light armor. The armor was made of fine iron and heavy silver alloy, and was very thin, mainly covering the upper body, elbows, and knee joints. The armor was dark silver, and did not look very eye-catching, but there was a faint fluctuation of light energy on it. Enchanting the light element was more difficult than the other elements. Therefore, his soft armor, which did not even have a helmet, did not have a strong light element. It had a certain level of defense, and the advantage was that it was light. After that, he chose 2 heavy swords. Among these equipment, there was only one heavy sword with light element enchantment, so he chose the fire element for his second heavy sword. The shape of the 2 heavy swords was no different from the standard heavy sword of the knight. The standard swords were inscribed with different magic patterns, and the center of each sword was inlaid with a 4th-grade magical beast crystal core. The swords weighed between 20 and 25 kilograms. For Long Haochen, whose external spiritual power was 200, this weight was nothing at all. Lin Yinjia asked curiously, Long Haochen, aren't you the guardian knight? Why did you choose 2 heavy swords? Long Haochen was a little embarrassed. I already have a shield, so I'll choose an extra sword as a backup. Can I? Lin Yinjia smiled. Of course. Li Aoxiao said, when you go back, familiarize yourself with your equipment. We will be leaving tomorrow morning. If you complete the entrance ticket, the Invigilator will bring you directly to the Alliance. Haoyue City will also send people to the Alliance to arrange everything for you. Yes. After returning to their residence, Lin Xian told Long Haochen to rest well, and then went back. Long Haochen took out the 5 kilograms of dried fish he bought on the way back and gave it to his good friend Haoyue, the twin-headed lizard. He could not wait to try out the equipment he had just received. When he put on the light armor, He immediately felt that the light elements around his body seemed to have increased, and he subconsciously circulated his internal spiritual power. The light armor clearly rippled with a layer of faint golden light. Although it could not increase the spiritual power consumption when Long Houchen used skills, both his attack and defense were strengthened. More importantly, the armor was very light, and did not affect Long Houchen's movements at all. As for the pair of swords, he liked them even more. Under the activation of spiritual power, the two swords swallowed and spat out light, especially the light sword that matched his element. It could spit out a faint golden blade of light that was more than a foot long. The fire sword's element was slightly weaker, but it did not repel light. With the spiritual power from the holy light, it could at least display 80% of its attack power. Long Houchen estimated that with this equipment, his combat power would increase by at least 10%. Moreover, with the forget-me-not ring, he could switch to using the sword or the shield in his left hand at any time, which was equivalent to switching between the Guardian Knight and the Punishment Knight. Long Houchen. A cold voice came from outside the door. Teacher. Long Houchen hurriedly went forward to open the door and welcomed Yi Hua in. Haoyue, who was nibbling on dried fish at the side, saw Yi Hua coming in and made a few unfriendly whines at him. It seemed that he was still holding a grudge against Yi Hua for what happened back then. Long Houchen brought his teacher into the inner room. Yi Hua looked at the light armor on his body and said, Haoyue City is quite big. However, you don't even have a piece of spirit-level equipment? You really treat me differently. Long Houchen smiled and said, It is already a pleasant surprise to have a full set of magic equipment. Teacher, didn't you say that a true expert cannot rely too much on equipment? Yi Hua snorted and said, That was when I was teaching you. It is different now. The Monster Hunters Trials is not just a competition. It can be said that it is basically a war. One mistake and you will lose your life. Long Houchen said, Teacher, do you not have that much confidence in me? Yi Hua said, It is one thing to have confidence, but it is another thing to prepare for a rainy day. You will be leaving tomorrow, and I will also be heading to the Temple League. I will be waiting for you there to participate in the main competition. This is for you. While speaking, Yi Hua took off a gray metal wrist guard from his wrist. This wrist guard seemed to be very ordinary just by looking at its appearance. However, when Yi Hua took off the wrist guard, Long Houchen was surprised to see that the inside of the wrist guard was actually a light gold color. It was made up of at least 100 light gold gems that were the size of rice grains. Long Houchen was not an expert in forging equipment, but not knowing about these gems did not affect his judgment of this equipment. Just the light attribute spiritual wave emitted by the wrist guard was already much stronger than the few pieces of equipment that he had. Teacher is poor, so I don't have anything good to give you. This spiritual light wrist guard can produce a holy light shield after spiritual power is injected into it. It can be activated 3 times a day and can last for 1 minute each time. Holy Light Shield was a defensive skill that a great knight could use for a guardian knight. Its defensive effect was much stronger than Spiritual Light Shield. Moreover, the biggest advantage of Holy Light Shield was that it could control its range. The larger the range, the lower the defensive power. More importantly, within the range of Holy Light Shield, there was also a certain healing effect. It was one of the few skills that a guardian knight could use. The only flaw was that it consumed a lot of spiritual power. Activating this skill required 50 points of spiritual power, and every second that it was activated would consume an additional 5 points of spiritual power. From this, it could be seen how precious this equipment that Yi Hua casually threw to Long Houchen was. Every time it was used, it was equivalent to saving 350 points of spiritual power. Furthermore, it could be activated 3 times a day, so it was definitely a life-saving item. It could be considered as a rare treasure even among spirit demon equipment. Teacher, this is too precious. I can't take it. Yi Hua's face darkened. You think it's too bad? If I don't want it, then just throw it away. I'm going back. As he spoke, he stood up and walked out. Long Houchen said helplessly, Teacher, I didn't mean that. This spiritual light shield is too precious. Yihua walked to the door and stopped. I don't have any relatives, I only have you as my disciple. After saying this, he waved his hand at Long Houchen, indicating that he didn't need to send him out, and left by himself. Looking at the spiritual light shield in his hand, Long Houchen's heart was filled with warmth. Teacher, I won't let you down. Early morning, Haoyue City East Gate. This was the place where they agreed to meet last night. Li Xian rode on her rose unicorn that had grown to the peak of rank 5 in 2 years, and headed towards the East Gate with Long Houchen. After more than 2 years, Long Houchen was no longer a child. He was naturally too embarrassed to share a ride with Li Xian. Naylan Shu gave him a healthy horse, and he rode on the horse's back, walking side by side with Li Xian. Long Houchen, where's Haoyue? Where did it go? Li Xian looked around, and didn't see the twin-headed lizard that stuck to Long Houchen all day long. She couldn't help but be curious. Ever since Long Houchen brought it back, this guy was practically inseparable from Long Houchen. Long Houchen smiled and said, Sister, it's nearby. When we get out of the city, it will naturally appear. Li Xian said curiously, I really feel that Haoyue is smarter than my Rose. But it's only rank 4 mid-rank. Soon, the two of them arrived at the East Gate. At this time, the excited Chun brothers were already waiting there, but Lin Jialu hadn't arrived yet. Miss Xian little brother Long Chun Si took the initiative to greet them. They were very respectful towards Lin Xian and her brothers. As for Long Houchen, they only regarded him as Lin Xian's subordinate. After all, Naylan Shu said yesterday that Long Houchen was only 14 years old this year. How much ability could a 14-year-old child have? Lin Xian was different. Not only was her cultivation higher than theirs, but she also possessed a powerful magical beast like the Rose Unicorn. Her overall strength was comparable to the two brothers added together. The status of a knight had always been much higher than that of a warrior, so they naturally hoped to have a good relationship with Lin Xian. Those who were selected to participate in the Monster Hunters trial were all talented people. The upcoming test required everyone's cooperation. Lin Xian nodded to them and said, Lin Jialu still hasn't arrived? Qin Si smiled and said, It's not time yet. Let's wait for a while. Lin Xian nodded with a calm face. The two brothers, Qin Si and Qin Chen, were also riding healthy horses. Just as they were talking, a carriage came slowly and stopped not far in front of them. The curtain was lifted, and Lin Jialu jumped down from the carriage, but she stood there respectfully. Then, an old man came down from the carriage. This old man looked to be 60 or 70 years old. His gray hair was meticulously combed, and the slightly fragrant hair wax made his short hair shiny. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, but his gaze was slightly cold. His lips were slightly thin, and his temperament was both arrogant and noble, giving people a feeling that it was not easy to get close to him. He wore a light blue magic robe. The edges of the robe were outlined with golden threads. The robe itself also emitted a faint metallic luster, and the active wind elements naturally circled around his body. He held a long magic staff in his hand. The staff was dark green, and there was an egg-sized blue and white gem at the top. Lin Jialu respectfully said, Lord Supervisor, please. The old man nodded and looked at her. His arrogant eyes softened a bit. Let's go. Accompanied by Lin Jialu, he came in front of Long Houchen and the others. Everyone hurriedly dismounted. Without a doubt, this old man was the supervisor sent by the Temple League, and he was a magician. Although there was no obvious magic wave coming from his body, it was obvious that Lin Jialu was no match for him. The old man walked in front of everyone and did not say much. He only said lightly, Let's go. Chapter 16. Let's go. The old man who was the supervisor gave the order in a flat voice. As he spoke, he casually waved the staff in his hand. A ball of green light enveloped his body and lifted him off the ground. He floated a meter above the ground and moved forward. You can pretend that I don't exist. I won't give you any help unless you plan to withdraw from this selection. The old man's voice floated in front of them. The green light suddenly became intense, and in the next moment, the supervisor actually disappeared into thin air. The others were startled by the sudden disappearance of the invigilator. Only Long Houchen's gaze flickered as he subconsciously glanced behind him. This is the map. Lin Jialu took out a sheepskin map from her pocket and spread it out in front of everyone. We have to keep heading east and sneak into the territory controlled by the demons. These are for you. As she spoke, she took out 5 round tokens from her pocket. After keeping one for herself, she gave the other 4 to the 4 of them. Long Houchen took the token and looked at it. The token was very exquisite. It was made entirely of heavy silver and was inlaid with a light purple gem. It emitted a faint magical wave. This is our token for participating in the Monster Hunters selection. Our identity, origin, and participation number are recorded on the back. If we can't pass the entrance test, the supervisor will take back the token. With this token, we won't be troubled by the Alliance garrison, but we won't get their help either. After entering the territory of the demons, everything will depend on us. It's best if we can meet a few patrols of the demons. As long as we complete the task of killing a total of 25 demons, we can retreat. At this point, Lin Jialu paused. She deliberately glanced at Lin Xian and said, "With our cultivation, it's not difficult to complete this task. However, since we're acting as a group, we have to exert the strength of a group. A snake can't be without a head. Before we set off, it's best to choose a leader so that we can coordinate when there's a battle." Lin Xian snorted coldly. "So, you're going to be the leader?" Lin Jialu glanced at her and said unyieldingly, "Why not? My cultivation is the highest here, and I'm also a magician. It's the easiest for me to observe the entire battlefield from the rear, so I'm the most suitable commander." Lin Xian frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, she nodded to Lin Jialu and said, "All right, I'll follow your lead." Lin Jialu was stunned. She obviously didn't expect Lin Xian to be so easy to talk to. He couldn't help but look at her doubtfully. Lin Xian harumphed, "What are you looking at? I'm a fair person. Even if it's for the sake of my brother's safe return, I won't hold a grudge against you at this time. However, if there's a mistake in your command on the battlefield, I won't hesitate to strip you of your command." Lin Jialu chose to ignore Lin Xian's threat and looked at the Chen brothers. "Do you have any objections?" Chen Si and Chen Chen both shook their heads. The 2 brothers were simple and honest, and they admitted that they were not as good as the 2 young ladies. Naturally, they would not have any objections. "All right, if that's the case, then let's go." Lin Jialu gave her first command as a leader. Long Houchen stood beside Lin Xian gloomily and thought to himself, "Why didn't she ask for my opinion?" At this moment, Lin Jialu walked towards him. "Little brother Long, I'm wearing a robe, so I can't ride a horse. Take me with you, I'll sit behind you." "Ah!" Long Houchen stared dumbfoundedly at Lin Jialu, who had a gentle gaze and a sweet smile on her face. Then, he looked at Lin Xian, who had suddenly turned as cold as ice. He didn't know how to answer her. Lin Jialu smiled and didn't even look at Lin Xian. She said, "You're the guardian knight. Shouldn't you protect the safety of a magician?" As she spoke, she stretched out her hand to Long Houchen and gestured for him to pull her up the horse. "I'll ride with you." A slender hand reached out from the side and pulled Lin Jialu onto the back of the horse. It was none other than Lin Xian. Lin Jialu was shocked and said angrily, "Who wants to ride with you? You're the punishment knight, can you protect me?" Lin Xian said fiercely, "Either you choose the Chen brothers, or this is it. You want to take advantage of my brother? Dream on. I won't give you the chance." As she spoke, Lin Xian lightly kicked the horse's abdomen. The rose unicorn galloped forward like a red arrow, and under Lin Jialu's angry roar, it rushed forward. Long Haochen and the Chen brothers looked at each other, their faces revealing a bit of helplessness. They quickly whipped their horses and chased after them. A pitch-black figure followed closely behind them, moving forward close to the ground like a black arrow. Its two heads looked left and right, looking extremely excited. For the rose unicorn, a distance of more than 400 miles would only take 4 hours at most. However, Long Haochen and the others' ordinary horses would not be able to cover that distance. They set off early in the morning and only arrived near the border in the evening. With the selection number, the 5 successfully passed through the garrison area of the Temple League army and left their horses there. After a simple dinner, they quietly entered the demon's territory. To reduce the possibility of being discovered, Lin Xian let the rose unicorn return to its space. Under the cover of the night, they passed through a hill and arrived at the demon's territory in the distance. Stop for a moment. Lin Jialu called for everyone to stop and took out the map again. Although she had tacitly agreed to ride with Lin Xian, she still looked a little unhappy. Everyone surrounded Lin Jialu and squatted down. Lin Jialu spread out the map and pointed at it, saying, "We are currently at this position. About 200 miles ahead, the demon army is stationed. It's not practical to attack the army camp directly. That will only make it impossible for us to return. Therefore, our mission is to wipe out the demon scouts in the next few days. From now on, everyone must maintain a good formation. Lin Xian, you'll be at the front. Chen Si, Chen Chen, you two brothers will be at the flanks. Little brother Long, you'll be at the back. I'll be in the middle. Once we encounter an enemy, listen to my orders. Understood?" Although she didn't look too good, Lin Jialu was very calm at the moment. Her beautiful face had a bit of dignity. Everyone, including Lin Xian, nodded. Lin Jialu put away the map. When everyone stood up again, they couldn't help but look in the direction of the demons. Nervousness, excitement, and a bit of fear made them all vigilant. About to face a great enemy of humanity, the hero complex in their hearts was more or less stimulated. "Haoyue, come out," Long Haochen said in a low voice. A black shadow flashed. The two-headed lizard Haoyue had already silently appeared next to Long Haochen. Its appearance instantly shocked everyone. "Everyone, don't be nervous. This is my companion," Long Haochen hurriedly explained in a low voice. Everyone couldn't help but look at Haoyue. The one who was the most surprised was Lin Jialu. As a magician, her spiritual energy was naturally much stronger than that of melee professions. Her perception was also much stronger. However, she didn't even notice Haoyue's existence. "This is your mount companion?" Lin Jialu asked, a bit confused. Long Haochen nodded. Lin Jialu's eyes showed a bit of pity. She said, "All right, its figure isn't obvious. Let's go." Long Haochen took off the radiant shield and lightsaber on his back and silently walked at the back. The 5 of them formed a rhombus formation, crossed over the hills, and finally entered the territory of the demons. In front of them was a large plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. However, when the wind blew, they could faintly smell a bit of blood. With the appearance of the demons, it had been 6,000 years since the Dark Age began. Both humans and demons had shed too much blood on this plain. Lin Jialu was still holding the magic staff that she didn't use when she fought against Long Haochen. She lightly tapped the magic staff in the air, accompanied by a few incantations. A transparent bird-shaped silhouette spread its wings and soared into the air, flying high into the sky. Lin Jialu's eyes were also covered with a faint layer of light. Eagle Eye was a magic that all magicians had to learn. It allowed the user to look down from the sky and observe far away. The higher the level of cultivation, the wider the range of the Eagle Eye. Lin Xian slightly frowned and said, "The terrain here is too open, it's not suitable for us to set up an ambush. Find a place where we can hide." Lin Jialu slightly nodded and said, There is a hilly area 5 miles ahead to the left. In front of the hilly area is a shrub. Let's go there for the time being. After that, we'll move forward slowly. There are no enemies within a 10-mile radius. Let's go. Lin Xian nodded. The group sped up their pace according to Lin Jialu's instructions. Long Haochen was surprised to find that the two Haoyue sisters, who usually quarreled whenever they saw each other, didn't show any signs of quarreling at this time. The group of 5 was led by the two of them. Lin Xian was scouting ahead, while Lin Jialu was commanding and scouting in the middle. The Chun brothers and Long Haochen were very relaxed, they only needed to follow along. Under the guidance of Lin Jialu's eagle eye, the group moved forward very cautiously. After an hour, they used the rare cover on the plain to move about 50 miles. Every time they arrived at a place where they could hide, Lin Jialu would mark it on the map and then continue moving forward. The route they took to enter the demons' territory was carefully selected by the leaders of Haoyue City. From the Temple League garrison to the nearest garrison of the demons, it was only 200 miles of open land. Although the terrain wasn't favorable, it was close, and it was much more convenient to retreat. The night gradually darkened. After moving for about 80 miles, Lin Jialu found a shrub and ordered them to rest. We can't go any closer. If we go any further, it's very likely that we will enter the detection range of the demons, Lin Jialu said in a low voice. Lin Xian nodded and said, I also heard from my father that there are some powerful magicians in the demons' camp. Their eagle eye can detect as far as 100 miles. If we go any further, the chances of being discovered will be very high. Let's just wait here for the hare. The group ate some food again to maintain their strength, and waited quietly in the same place. Only Lin Jialu kept using her eagle eye to investigate the surroundings. The night passed quietly. The sky gradually brightened. After a night of waiting, they didn't see a single demons patrolling. The 5 of them couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Especially Lin Jialu, who kept using her eagle eye, was already a little tired. Strange, don't these demons patrol? Chen Si asked in confusion. The 5 of them looked at each other, their faces showing some helplessness. Although they were all the best of the younger generation in Haoyue City, none of them had participated in the war. The mission that originally didn't seem difficult seemed to have become troublesome. There was also a time limit to the admission ticket. They only had 3 days in total. If they exceeded this time, they wouldn't be able to go to the Temple League to participate in the selection. Lin Xian frowned and said, If it really doesn't work, I'll ride Rose deeper into the detection range of the demons. That way they should be able to react. Lin Jialu immediately said, No. It's too dangerous. Your Rose unicorn is too obvious. If we're not careful, it will attract a strong enemy and we'll all be wiped out. While they were discussing countermeasures, Long Haochen, who had been quietly listening, suddenly shouted, Be careful, there's an enemy. As he said that, he suddenly raised the lightsaber in his hand, and a layer of pale golden light instantly enveloped the 5 of them. Spirit Light Shield. Almost in the next moment, a violent vibration came from under their feet. With a poof, the Spirit Light Shield shattered. But at the same time, another layer of Spirit Light Shield lit up under Long Haochen's feet, finally blocking the attack from under their feet. A series of extremely thick spikes that were about 1.5 meters long emerged from the Spirit Light barrier. If Long Haochen's reaction had been a step slower, then they would have had to endure this attack with their bodies. There were 7 or 8 thick spikes, and they were purplish-black in color. There was also a faint purplish-black aura rippling on them. The second Spirit Light Shield was not created by Long Haochen. The speed at which he used his skill was not that fast. It was released by the golden-eyed lizard head in Haoyue. It connected perfectly with Long Haochen's Spirit Light Shield, completing this defense for everyone. It's the Luke tribe. The 5 of them were all elites of the younger generation in Haoyue City. After a short moment of shock, they all reacted. At the same time, Lin Xian shouted, a pair of long swords shining with scarlet light in her hands fiercely stabbed into the ground. Long Houchen, Chun Si, and Chen Chen did the same. Poof, poof, and the ground shook violently. Lin Jialu pointed her wand downwards, and a blue light shot towards the ground. At the same time, she shouted, "Pull out your weapons!" The blood-stained weapons were pulled out from the ground. Immediately after, everyone felt a chill under their feet. The ground had already been frozen solid like steel. Lin Jialu used the ice wall spell directly under their feet. One after another, thick spikes burst out from the ground around the five of them. Then, one figure after another shot out from the ground and surrounded Long Houchen's group of five. They were ferocious-looking creatures that resembled humans. They were about 1.7 meters tall. Their upper bodies were bare, and their lower bodies were covered in fine black scales. Their upper bodies were purplish-black, and they had 3 eyes on their heads. The most peculiar thing about them was their 4 arms. That's right, each of these monsters had 4 arms, and each arm was shaped like a sharp cone. The forearms were completely keratinized, like triangular spikes, and the tips emitted a faint cold light. Although Long Houchen and the others had learned about demons in their respective temple and had also seen the atlas of the various races of demons, they couldn't help but feel a little nervous when facing the demons. 6,000 years ago, the 72 demon god pillars suddenly descended on the holy demon continent, causing a large number of creatures to mutate. Later, they gradually transformed into the various combat powers of demons. Among them, there were more than 20 races, and the ones in front of them were one of them, the Luke tribe. Compared to humans, the most terrifying thing about demons was their talent for combat. Regardless of gender or age, they could all participate in battle. The talent of demons was far beyond that of humans. Even without any training, they could still become powerful warriors. The talent of the Luke tribe was their 4 spike-shaped arms. They weren't very strong in direct combat, but they were extremely good at sneak attack. When the 4 arms were raised at the same time and closed over their heads, they could quickly drill through the ground as fast as running. When they suddenly launched an attack from below, it was impossible to defend against. At this moment, there were about 16 or 17 Luke tribe warriors surrounding Long Houchen's group of 5. Among them, there were still a few spikes that hadn't emerged from the ground. Clearly, they had died to the direct counterattack from Long Houchen's group. As soon as these Luke tribe warriors rushed out of the ground, they immediately rushed at Long Houchen's group of 5 with strange cries. The spikes on their bodies emitted a cold light, looking extremely tyrannical. Because the enemies were coming from all directions, the other 4, with the exception of Lin Jialu, had to fight their own battles. Although they were a little nervous, they were, after all, grade 4 professionals. They didn't act rashly, maintaining their formation with Lin Jialu in the center and raising their weapons. The first to act was Haoyue, who was standing next to Long Houchen, his 2 large heads raised. Xiaohua opened his mouth and spat out a fireball. Xiao Guang didn't show any weakness either, shooting out an even faster arrow of light. Because Haoyue's 2 heads each had their own thoughts, Long Houchen named them according to their attributes: Xiaohua, Xiao Guang. The arrow of light that Xiao Guang shot out was about a foot long and extremely fast. Before one of the Luke tribe warriors could react, the arrow had already pierced through his head. He waved his 4 spikes and fell to the ground. Immediately after, there was an explosion. Another Luke tribe warrior tried to use his spikes to block Xiaohua's fireball. He did manage to block it, but he was also sent flying by the fireball's explosive force. There were only a dozen enemies in total, and Long Houchen was only facing 4 at the same time. Haoyue had already dealt with 2, so he naturally didn't feel any pressure. A low chant quickly came from his mouth. He raised the lightsaber in his hand high above his head, and a strange symbol lit up above his head. As if it was contagious, this symbol instantly split and appeared above the heads of the other 4 people. Immediately after, a golden halo rippled from under Long Houchen's feet, and the 5 people within the halo's range were covered in a layer of faint golden light. It wasn't until Long Houchen finished casting these 2 divine spells that the other 2 Luke tribe warriors he was facing reached him. He raised his sword of light, but he also had the radiant shield in his left hand. With 2 bangs, the spikes of the 2 Luke tribe warriors were completely blocked. The golden symbol that appeared above his head was the Guardian Knight's skill, Guardian's Grace. When attacked by an enemy, the Grace of Guardian would immediately erupt with a defensive effect, negating a certain amount of the enemy's attack power. The golden halo caused the nervousness in Long Houchen and the others to turn into determination. This was the halo of faith. Like the Grace of Guardian, it was a support skill of the Guardian Knight. With the release of these 2 skills, the Sword of Light in Long Houchen's hand had already descended. 2-foot-wide blades of light shot out, easily cutting through the bodies of the 2 Luke tribe warriors in front of him. Little Light and Little Fire also spat out fireballs and arrows of light, killing the Luke tribe warrior that had been blasted away. The 4 enemies on Long Houchen's side had all been dealt with. Lin Jialu, who was in the center of the formation, had just finished casting a spell. Since Long Houchen was so young, she naturally had to take care of this side first. However, just as she finished casting her spell, the battle on Long Houchen's side had already ended. Not only that, but he had also cast 2 group skills to help everyone. Ice Spear. 4 beams of blue light shot into the sky, then fell down like meteors, turning into 4 2-meter-long ice spears that nailed the 4 Luke tribe warriors to the ground. It seemed like they were dead. Lin Xian and Chen Chen's enemies were also dealt with in the next moment. Chen Si was a shield warrior, so his defense was stronger than his attack. However, with the help of Lin Jialu's ice spear, he also finished the battle. The Luke tribe warrior's direct combat ability was already very weak, barely equivalent to a human second-order warrior. Without the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, how could they be a match for these 4 fourth-order warriors? Looking at the corpses on the ground, everyone let out a collective sigh of relief. These Luke tribe enemies had come too suddenly. Although their combat ability was not very strong, if they had not discovered their sneak attack beforehand, Long Houchen and the others would definitely have paid a heavy price. "Little brother Long, thank you," Lin Jialu said to Long Houchen with a pale face. She was a magician, so her defense was weak. If she had not been discovered during a sneak attack, she would have been the one most likely to be killed. The way Chen Si and Chen Chen looked at Long Houchen clearly changed. Although Long Houchen had Haoyue's help in the battle just now, it should not be forgotten that not only did he discover the enemy at the first moment, he also used a total of 3 divine spells, one more than Lin Jialu, who was a magician. Aura Barrier, Faith Aura, and Blessing of Protection. Although they were all skills that a second-order knight could use, they were very practical. In addition, he had also used Light-Severing Sword twice, cleanly killing 2 enemies. The speed at which the skills were chained together made Chen Si and Chen Chen sigh in admiration. Without a doubt, Long Houchen had used his strength to prove that he was also a great knight, and not some Lin Xian's follower. A 14-year-old great knight. Just thinking about it, the Chen brothers felt a chill in their hearts. The trademark of a great knight was the ability to release spiritual energy without using any skills. Although Long Houchen did not display this ability, his continuous chaining of skills was enough to prove his strength. Just as everyone was looking at Long Houchen in shock, Long Houchen's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted again, "Careful!" A golden light flashed. It was another aura barrier. However, this time, the aura barrier shattered almost as soon as it appeared. At the same time, everyone could vaguely see a figure appear like lightning beside Lin Jialu. A cold light went straight for Lin Jialu's neck. An invisible attack. Lin Jialu was in the middle of Long Houchen and the other 3. As a magician, she was an important target for protection. However, at this time, as the faintly discernible figure broke through the aura barrier, it had already entered the gap between Chen Chen and Lin Xian. The enemy's speed was too fast, and most of them were still in a daze. Long Houchen was able to react and instantly cast a aura barrier was already the limit of his skills. Whether in terms of distance or speed, it was impossible for him to rescue Lin Jialu. Jialu, Lin Exan screamed. However, no matter how anxious she was, it would take time for her to rescue Lin Jialu. There was no way she could make it in time. The cold sharp blade caused the skin on Lin Jialu's neck to tremble. The moment Long Houchen shouted to be careful, she felt the coldness. Not to mention that she was a great magician, even a magister would not be able to do anything in this situation. Was death about to come? At this moment, Lin Jialu felt neither sorrow nor joy, only endless unwillingness. It was as if the sharp blade had already cut her throat, and it was as if she felt her soul leaving her body. Dang! A crisp sound rang out, and the figure that rippled like water took 3 steps back before stabilizing itself. What was going on? Whether it was Lin Xian or the Chun brothers, their eyes widened in the next moment of despair, because they saw a completely inconceivable scene. At the same time the aura barrier was released, a soft white light came out from Long Houchen's chest. The light wasn't strong, but the moment the sharp blade touched Lin Jialu's neck, it fell on the invisible figure. What was even more strange was that the figure was suddenly covered in a layer of faint white light, revealing its outline. The sharp blade brushed past Lin Jialu's neck, but it didn't cut her throat. Instead, it stabbed towards Long Houchen. That clang was the sound of Long Houchen using the radiant shield in his hand to block the opponent's attack. Dang, 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 dang. A series of explosive sounds rang out from the radiant shield in Long Houchen's hand. The invisible figure covered in a layer of white light launched a storm of attacks towards Long Houchen, but all of them were firmly blocked by Long Houchen. The radiant shield in Long Houchen's hands was like an insurmountable moat. No matter how crazy the opponent's attacks were, they couldn't get past it. Lin Jialu was finally able to cry out. There was a slight pain on her neck. It was a wound. The strong feeling of fear made her whole body go limp, and she completely forgot to attack. No matter how outstanding her performance was in the magic branch in Haoyue City, she was still a girl who had never been on the battlefield. The line between life and death almost made her heart collapse. Lin Xian's reaction was still the fastest. Without hesitation, she launched a cross slash towards the invisible figure from behind. The invisible enemy was indeed powerful. His body slightly twisted in the air, and he was able to dodge Lin Xian's attack. But strangely, it was as if he had locked onto Long Houchen, and all of his attacks were focused on Long Houchen. What are you guys doing? Hurry up and attack! Lin Xian shouted, awakening the Chun brothers. It also made Lin Jialu, who was still in a state of shock, come to her senses. Haoyue under Long Houchen's feet also launched an attack. Fireballs and light arrows bombarded the invisible enemy. At this time, everyone could see that the invisible enemy was completely humanoid. Apart from being invisible, it was no different from a human. It held a transparent blade in each hand. The attacks from both of Haoyue's heads were all destroyed by the sharp blades. Moreover, it was not affected in the slightest. Whirlwind slash! Chen Chen shouted. A pair of fire elemental longswords appeared on both sides of his body. His entire body turned into a fiery red vortex, crashing towards the invisible figure. Lin Xian leaped high, and the 2 swords in her hands joined together, bursting out a cross slash in the air. Chen Si was a shield warrior, better at defense. He had already circled to the side of Long Houchen, trying to help Long Houchen block some of the attack. However, the invisible enemy would only attack Long Houchen. Faced with the joint attack of everyone, the invisible enemy's body suddenly paused in the air. Then, a circle of dark red light exploded from its body, filled with the smell of blood. Chen Chen was the first to bear the brunt. Whirlwind slash collided with the dark red light. He grunted and the whirlwind slash stopped, and his whole body fell to the side. At this time, the gap in their cultivation base became apparent. With a loud bang, Lin Xian's sword slashed the dark red light. Although it was also bounced off, the invisible enemy trembled slightly. It was obvious that it was affected by Lin Xian's attack. However, in this short period of time, the pair of sharp blades in the enemy's hands suddenly turned dark red. With the tip of its foot on the ground, its whole body was like a horizontal tornado, with the pair of dark red blades as the tip, rushing straight at Long Houchen. There was a harsh tearing sound in the air. If one looked from a distance, they would see that the invisible enemy at this time, looked like a dark red lightning. Long Houchen's expression was solemn, his handsome face expressionless, a pair of clear golden eyes full of calmness, not at all like a 14-year-old boy. Lunging forward, holding the shield, in an instant, Long Houchen's whole body was fixed in place like a rock. Divine block. Clang, in the loud noise, a golden light suddenly blazed on Long Houchen's body, and the invisible enemy was repelled in the air. Long Houchen's right hand, which had not been used for a long time, finally moved. The light sword with a dazzling holy golden light slashed down. The golden light that had just appeared around his body just now was injected into the light sword in this instant. Light's vengeance and light slash. Because its attack was blocked, the invisible enemy only had time to raise a pair of dark red blades to block. With a bang, the invisible enemy was ruthlessly smashed to the ground, letting out a blood-curdling scream. Even the ground was smashed by his body, forming a shallow pit. In the next moment, a ball of light like the sun lit up behind him. A rich golden red light, carrying the power of light and flame, descended from the sky. Glorious sun slash. Ah! A blood-curdling scream sounded, but it only lasted for a moment. The invisible body was cut in half by Lin Xian's glorious sun slash, and dark green blood splattered in all directions. The original invisible body was also revealed. Chen Xi's reaction was very fast. Without hesitation, he immediately approached the pale Lin Jialu, raised the heavy shield in his hand, and emitted a layer of earthy yellow light to protect him and Lin Jialu. "What are you doing?" Lin Xian angrily shouted at Lin Jialu. If Lin Jialu could participate in the attack after Long Houchen blocked the enemy's attack, it would obviously be easier for them to deal with this invisible enemy. Lin Jialu panted heavily, her eyes filled with fear. She gradually recovered from her shock after hearing Lin Xian's scolding. "Sister, forget it." Long Houchen hurriedly pulled Lin Xian back. The crisis might not be resolved just like that. No one knew if there were any more enemies, and internal strife was fatal. Lin Xian turned her head to look at Long Houchen, her eyes sparkling. Without a doubt, if it wasn't for Long Houchen's amazing performance just now, Lin Jialu would already be dead. Although Lin Xian was the one who dealt the last blow, Long Houchen almost blocked all the invisible enemy's attack. If Zhang Tai didn't have a rock-solid defense and didn't use the Revenge of Light to injure the opponent with his light cutting sword, the invisible demon's glorious sun cut might not have been able to kill him given the ability of this invisible demon. Chen Xi said in a deep voice, "We don't have a priest, so we can't use Eye of Truth. If there are still such invisible enemies, it will be too dangerous. What do we do now?" Lin Jialu lowered her head, her eyes filled with shame. In fact, it wasn't that she wasn't outstanding, but everything that happened just now was too sudden. "Brother Long, my heart is already in a mess. It's not suitable for me to continue commanding. You or Lin Xian will command everyone." Lin Xian nodded without hesitation and said, "Long Houchen, you will command." Age was never the standard to measure one's strength. Both times, it was Long Houchen who discovered the enemy at the first moment, which prevented everyone from getting hurt. Although the other four did not know how he did it, they were already convinced by him. Long Houchen didn't decline and said in a deep voice, "The enemy must have used some special method to discover us. They sent this batch of Luke tribe lurkers to attack us, and then the Earth Dragon Tribe Invisible Warrior to launch a sneak attack from the side. There are 20 Luke Tribe Lurkers and 1 Earth Dragon Tribe Invisible Warrior. We have already killed 21 enemies, 4 more to complete the mission. This place is too far from the Alliance's border. Since the enemy has a way to discover us, they must know that the people they sent have failed and will definitely send more experts to attack us. We will leave this place immediately and slowly retreat in the direction of the Alliance. If there's a chance, we will complete the mission. If not, we will return to the vicinity of the Alliance. We need to protect ourselves first before we can fight better. Chapter 17. Although Long Houchen was young, both Long Xingwu and Yi Hua had instilled him with countless knowledge and experience on the battlefield. Staying calm was his top priority. Protecting himself was more important than defeating the enemy. Lin Jialu's gaze involuntarily fell on the Earth Dragon Tribe's concealment expert again. The Ground Dragon was a mid-level unit among the demons. They were good at invisibility, speed, and attack. They didn't look much different from humans, except that their faces were long and narrow, their skin was gray, and their arms were longer than humans. Their attack power was astonishing. Especially when they were invisible, it was impossible to defend against them. They were the natural nemesis of magicians. More importantly, their invisibility ability could only be revealed when they were hit by light element skills or the priest's true sight. In every war, there would be a large number of invisible ground dragons who hid and hunted human magicians. Even the most ordinary stealthy ground dragon tribe's strength was equivalent to that of a rank 4 human warrior, if not stronger. As a mid-level unit among the demons, they could improve their abilities through training. This was something the lurkers of the Rook tribe couldn't compare to. "Let's go," Long Houchen said in a low voice. "Maintain the original formation. I'll cover the rear. Sis, don't summon roses. This is our hidden combat power. If the enemy sends troops after us, we'll have one more trump card." "Okay." Lin Xian gripped her swords. After glancing at Lin Jialu, she quickly moved forward. Lin Jialu took a deep breath of the cold dawn air. She forced herself to calm down and cast a levitation spell on herself. Then, she quickly followed behind Lin Xian. The Chun brothers and Long Houchen moved as well. Maintaining the diamond formation, they sped toward the Temple League. As they sped, Long Houchen summarized the battle in his mind. He was able to discover the enemy's tracks first twice because of the perception brought by his mutated spiritual power. Ever since the Knight's Holy Mountain and Haoyue's blood intertwined, he discovered that not only did his external spiritual energy show signs of continuous growth in the past 6 months, but his senses were also sharper than before. The Earth Dragon had the ability to conceal its presence. Even though he had only sensed it when it was only a short distance away, this was enough to prove how powerful its senses were. Through the exchange just now, Long Houchen could tell that the Earth Dragon was probably close to the Type 5 realm. More importantly, in the battle just now, Long Houchen had used the power of the spiritual stove for the first time. The instant he discovered the Earth Dragon tribe's stealthy being, he released his spirit light barrier. At the time, he still didn't know who the enemy was, but he was certain that a spirit light barrier of this level wouldn't be able to stop the enemy. Therefore, at the same time as he activated the spiritual light barrier, he activated his Saint's spiritual stove for the first time. It was the white light that shot out from his chest. The moment the Saint's spiritual stove hit the enemy, Long Houchen clearly felt as if he had locked onto the enemy's soul. Although the power of the spiritual stove didn't have any offensive or defensive capabilities, the Earth Dragon had no choice but to change its target and attack Long Houchen with all its strength. It was also by relying on the Saint's spiritual stove's guidance that Lin Jialu's life was saved. Otherwise, with Long Houchen's current cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to save her in time. Under Yi Hua's guidance, Long Houchen had often practiced using the Saint's spiritual stove for the past 6 months. Yi Hua had also explained the Saint's spiritual stove's mysteries and various uses in detail to him. Now, Long Haochen could use the Saint's spiritual stove to a range of about 20 meters. If the enemy exceeded this range, then the effect of the Saint's spiritual stove would disappear. Lin Jialu once again released the Eagle Eye technique in the sky. Although the Eagle Eye technique couldn't detect the Luke tribe and the Earth Dragon tribe, the Luke tribe wasn't much of a threat to them. Moreover, the Earth Dragon tribe was considered a rare troop among the demons, so there might not be a second one. Apart from these two, the majority of the demons could still be detected by the Eagle Eye technique. "There's an enemy," Lin Jialu whispered. Everyone's footsteps stopped. Lin Xian asked, "How many?" "One." Lin Xian rolled her eyes. "Just one, what the hell are you yelling for?" Lin Jialu didn't argue with her this time, and said in a low voice, "It's a dark green Zhe Lin tribe dual blade demon. Their speed is very fast, and they're chasing in our direction." Hearing her words, everyone, including Long Haochen, couldn't help but have a change in expression as they sucked in a breath of cold air. The Zhe Lin tribe was the largest tribe of demons, with the largest population. According to the Temple League's investigation, the total population of the Zhe Lin tribe was at least 3 million. Almost every year on the battlefield, there would be hundreds of thousands of Zhe Lin tribe dual-blade demons perishing. The ordinary Zhe Lin tribe dual-blade demons were the most common troop type among the demons. They weren't mutated from humans, but mutated from a type of demon beast when the 72 demon god pillars descended. At first, there weren't many demons whose strength was equivalent to a grade 2 beginner warrior, but they had a shocking reproductive ability. Over the millennia, their numbers continued to increase, and they gradually became the largest tribe of demons. If it was just an ordinary dual-blade demon, any one of Long Haochen's group of 5 could handle at least a few dozen without a problem. But the key was in Lin Jialu's description of dark green. An ordinary Zhe Lin tribe dual-blade demon's body was black, and its entire body was a carapace. If described in human terms, it could be said that they only had external spiritual energy and no internal spiritual energy. They were close-combat demons that relied solely on their physical body. When the Zhe Lin tribe dual-blade demon's black carapace turned dark green, it meant that they had at least gone through one mutation. It was the king of the Zhe Lin tribe. Out of 10,000 dual-blade demons, only one dark green dual-blade demon would appear. The strength of the Zhe Lin tribe king was a true grade 5 powerhouse. Its close combat ability was extremely strong. Usually, even a grade 5 warrior couldn't compete with it. The Earth Dragon tribe stealer's strength could be close to grade 5, but it was definitely not grade 5. Whether humans or demons, grade 5 was a dividing line, equivalent to the difference between a knight's great knight and an earth knight. Even if it was a grade 9 great knight and a grade 1 earth knight, there was an insurmountable chasm between them. Without a doubt, this sudden appearance of the dark green dual-blade demon was a powerful force that could wipe them all out. "What do we do?" Lin Jialu looked at Long Haochen. Long Haochen hesitated for a moment and asked, "Did you find any other demons?" Lin Jialu shook her head and said, "No, there's only this one. Even if the demons discover us, they won't muster such a large force to attack us. A dark green dual-blade demon that's enough to guard a demon god, a goblin stealer, and 20 Luke tribe stealers is already a sign that they think highly of us. I estimate that there won't be any more demons reinforcements in the near future." Long Haochen took a deep breath, and his eyes revealed a resolute light. "We can't hide. The dark green dual-blade demon's speed isn't something we can match. We'll be caught sooner or later. Everyone, recover your spiritual energy. Sister, summon Rose and we'll fight it to the death. As long as we get through this, we'll have a chance to retreat to the Alliance." "All right." Lin Xian was like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. She immediately summoned Rose, and mounted the Rose unicorn's back, immediately increasing her power. Rose was already a top rank 5 demon beast, only a step away from rank 6. Compared to humans, demon beasts were one rank lower. Rose was basically equivalent to a peak Great Knight, a bit stronger than everyone present. With her help, they would naturally be more confident in dealing with the dark green dual-blade demon. Lin Jialu had calmed down quite a bit by now, and continued to observe with eagle eye. We'll be able to see it in 3 minutes at most. Long Haochen made a prompt decision and said, I'll still be the main defense later. I won't hide it from everyone. Just now, when I attracted the Earth Dragon Tribe Stealer, I used the power of the spiritual stove, Saint's spiritual stove. I'm sure you've all heard of it. Therefore, after I block the dark green dual blade demon, you can attack without any qualms before I'm killed. I don't know how long I can resist, so you must use your fastest and strongest attacks to get rid of it. The 5 of them only had 3 professions: knight, warrior, and magician. Moreover, they had never worked together before. When they faced the stealer, it was already somewhat chaotic, so Long Haochen had to make some arrangements. Hearing the words Saint's spiritual stove, everyone's eyes couldn't help but shine, especially Lin Jialu. As the daughter of the consul of Haoyue City, she had a much clearer understanding of spiritual stoves than the Chen brothers. She also immediately understood that it was the Saint's spiritual stove that saved her life. Lin Xian looked at Long Haochen with a shocked face. You stinking brat, how many things are you hiding from sister? Long Haochen apologetically said, I'm sorry, sister, teacher didn't let me say. Lin Xian smiled. Alright, now isn't the time to talk about this. Let's get rid of the dark green dual blade demon first, then I'll deal with you. Chen Si and Chen Chen, the 2 brothers, glanced at each other, their expressions somewhat stupefied. A 14-year-old great knight, and also possessing a spiritual stove that they didn't even dare to think about. Chen Si said, Long Haochen, I'll help you defend. But if you're alone, I'm afraid. Long Haochen nodded and said, Big brother Chen, use your shield to block from the side to buy me some time. I'll use divine defense block to defend, but every time I block, I'll have to use the borrowed spiritual power before I can use it again. Big brother Chen, you have to help me fight for this moment of time. If we cooperate well, the dark green dual blade demon won't be able to break through our defense before our spiritual power is completely exhausted. Chen Si swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Just now, you blocked the Earth Dragon Tribe Stealer's all-out attack with divine defense, right? I didn't dare to confirm it just now, but it turns out it really was. Long Haochen chuckled and winked at him, saying, Big brother Chen, you have to keep this a secret for me. Chen Si gave him an understanding look, and stood about 2 meters away from Long Haochen. Although they hadn't cooperated before, everyone was, after all, a well-known figure among the younger generation of Haoyue City. With Long Haochen as the core, it would be much easier for the others to cooperate from the side. Lin Jialu retreated to a place slightly further away, while Lin Xian and Chen Chen stood on either side. The 5 of them quietly waited together. It could be said that it was precisely because Long Haochen possessed the Saint's spiritual stove that they had the opportunity to challenge the dark green dual blade demon. Otherwise, if this kind of 5th step expert were to attack, apart from Long Haochen using divine defense block, the others might not be able to withstand it. Although this was the first time he had relied on the Saint's spiritual stove to enter a battle, Long Haochen had already deeply experienced the enormous usefulness of this spiritual stove that had no offensive or defensive power in a team battle. He also understood the meaning behind Yi Hua's saying that it was the most suitable spiritual stove to protect the knight. Looking at the lightsaber in his hand, Long Haochen inwardly said, What Dad said was right, only in a real battle can one quickly increase one's strength. In terms of sturdiness, Long Haochen was far from being able to compare with the 2 brothers Chen Si and Chen Chen. Moreover, he was only 14 years old, but the current him was the cornerstone of the 5 people. Facing a 5th step expert, he was not afraid. Perhaps, among the 5 of them, he was the only one who had truly tried to go all out against a 5th step expert. At this time, the sun had already slowly risen from the far east, bringing light to the earth once again. On the distant horizon, under the illumination of the golden sunlight, a dark green figure gradually appeared in the sight of the 5 people. At this moment, Long Houchen slowly closed his eyes and adjusted the circulation of spiritual energy in his chest. The Saint Spiritual Stove. It not only stimulated the enemy, but it also stimulated my inner spiritual power. In the battle just now, when he was activating the spiritual stove, his internal spiritual energy recovery speed was at least 20% faster than usual. With regards to this legendary treasure like the spiritual stove, Long Houchen was becoming more and more interested. The dark green figure continued to grow larger in front of everyone. Lin Xian, Lin Jialu, Chen Si, and Chen Chen all simultaneously tightened their grip on the weapons in their hand. This was not the usual training. They were facing a powerful enemy with a cultivation of as high as the 5th step. Failure was not something they could do again, because failure meant death. Finally, they were able to clearly see the appearance of the dark green figure. The dark green dual-bladed demon was about 2 meters tall, and its body was about 3 meters long. Every time its thick and powerful limbs pushed off the ground, its body could rush forward 4 or 5 meters. On its back, there was a pair of not very wide carapace wings. This pair of wings could not allow it to fly, but it could allow its majestic body to maintain balance in the process of rushing forward. Its ferocious head was somewhat like a lizard's, but it was even wider, revealing dense, sharp teeth. The most valiant part was the pair of forelimbs that grew from its shoulders. This pair of forelimbs was at least 1.5 meters long, extremely thick and solid. Compared to its forelimbs that were used for running, it could only be considered as supporting the body. The forelimbs were raised in front of its head, and on each forelimb grew 3 sharp blade-like spikes. The outermost sharp spike was the longest, at 1.5 feet. The second spike was about 1 foot, and the third spike was a bit shorter. The 2 thick forearms had a total of 6 sharp blades that shone with a faint green light. These 2 forearms were the dual blades of the dual-bladed demon. If it was an ordinary dual-bladed demon, this pair of forearms would only have the outermost sharp spikes. Its figure would also be much smaller than this dark green dual-bladed demon. Just as the dark green dual-bladed demon approached within 100 meters of the 5, Long Houchen, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. His long eyelashes were slightly raised, and his clear, pale golden eyes were so bright that they could reflect the figure of the dark green dual-bladed demon. In the blink of an eye, his entire body erupted with an intense battle intent. Prepare for battle. For the dark green dual-bladed demon, a distance of 100 meters was nothing more than a few ups and downs. Lowly humans, you actually dare to kill my demon's warriors. Go to hell. The dark green dual-bladed demon spat out the human language, its voice like a great bell. Before it could even finish speaking, its enormous figure had already fiercely rushed over. With a flash of white light, the Saint's spiritual stove was activated. Just as the dark green dual-bladed demon entered the 20-meter range, Long Houchen had already locked onto it in a flash. The dark green dual-bladed demon clearly paused for a moment, then without the slightest hesitation, it leapt high up in Long Houchen's direction. Under the illumination of the sun, its glossy dark green carapace was like a ball of green light as it fell towards Long Houchen, its enormous forelimbs brazenly chopping down. Boom! The first to collide wasn't with Long Houchen, but with Lin Jialu's magic. 4 long ice lances bombarded the dark green dual-bladed demon's body almost simultaneously. However, what made the 5 people's hearts sink was that after the 4 ice lances bombarded the dark green dual-bladed demon's carapace, it unexpectedly shattered into countless ice crystals and scattered in all directions, only leaving behind a few white marks on its body. Such a strong defense. It was worthy of being the close combat unit with the largest number of demons. The dark green dual-bladed demon didn't know any skills, but its 5th step strength was completely reflected in its body, so how could it not be strong? Clang, the radiant shield in Long Houchen's hand burst with golden light, and the divine defense block forcefully blocked the dark green dual-bladed demon's heavy attack from above. A layer of dense golden light immediately appeared on his body. However, it was also at this moment that Long Houchen's pupils contracted violently. The dark green dual-bladed demon's physical attack was stronger than he had imagined. Long Houchen's current internal spiritual power had already reached more than 1,600 points, and he had the cultivation of a level 8 Great Knight. Given his current cultivation base, even a top-notch Earth Knight wouldn't be able to break the divine defense block without using any skills. This was because even a level 9 Earth Knight wouldn't have a spiritual power exceeding 4,000 points. A Radiance Knight with more than 4,000 points would be considered a Radiance Knight. The divine defense block could at most withstand an impact that was equivalent to 3 times the user's spiritual power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be known as a knight's most unsolvable skill. But even so, in the face of the dark green dual-bladed demon's heavy slash, Long Houchen still had to take 2 steps back before he could stand firm despite the perfect divine defense block. At the same time, he also discovered that the dark green dual-bladed demon's only heavy saber had landed on his radiant shield. At this moment, the difference between a level 5 and a level 4 was completely revealed. Previously, when the Earth Dragon's invisible being was blocked by Long Houchen's divine defense block, there was a moment of delay. However, the dark green dual-bladed demon didn't react at all, and the other heavy saber swept out almost instantly. It stretched toward Long Houchen. Due to the misjudgment of the dark green dual-bladed demon's attack, Chun Si's shield collision had just been launched and was already too slow. Long Houchen blocked the attack and his body shook violently. Helpless, he could only raise the light sword in his hand and use the divine defense block to condense Light's vengeance to block the sharp blades on the dark green dual-bladed demon's forelimbs. Bang! In the next instant, Long Houchen's body was blasted away like a cannonball, flying a full 30 feet before crashing to the ground. The tyrannical impact almost instantly ruptured the web between his thumb and index finger, and the light sword was sent flying far away. As soon as he opened his mouth, Long Houchen spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured. The divine defense block was not a god, and Long Houchen was not a Radiance Knight who could fully exert the powerful power of the divine defense block. Without truly facing a powerful demons like the dark green dual-bladed demon, he would never be able to understand how terrifying this demon's attack power was. However, Long Houchen's efforts were not in vain. The moment the dark green dual-bladed demon blasted Long Houchen away, Chun Si's heavy shield had also slammed into it. The dark green dual-bladed demon's body tilted slightly from the impact of the shield collision, and Chun Si was also forced to retreat 7 or 8 steps from the recoil of its body before barely standing firm. Lin Xian and Qin Chen's attacks also arrived at this time. Qin Chen's entire body leaped into the air, 2 heavy swords shining with dazzling flames and blazing spiritual energy fiercely slashing at the dark green dual-bladed demon's body. A warrior's leap slash and flame slash. Without the worry of defense, he wildly erupted the combat power of a berserker. With a bang, the dark green dual-bladed demon's body suddenly staggered from the bombardment, almost falling down. The flame slash also left 2 scorched black marks on its body. At this time, the rose unicorn descended like a red cloud. A fiery red shadow emerged from the rose unicorn's body, unexpectedly transforming into a version of itself in its spiritual power state. Split Shadow Strike, the rose unicorn's innate skill. The dark green dual-bladed demon that had lost its balance was forcibly knocked into the air. Its pair of powerful forelimbs quickly slashed the ground, maintaining its balance. Its entire body slightly curled up, and once again bounced up. Its target was Long Houchen. Under the guidance of the Saint's spiritual stove, no matter how strong the opponent's attack was, it must first kill Long Houchen before retaliating. This was the effect of the spiritual stove. At this time, Long Houchen had just stood up from the ground. At this time, a gentle white light fell on Long Houchen's body, the warm spiritual power quickly healing the wound between his thumb and index finger. Under the injection of that warm energy, his internal organs that had been shaken by the shock also felt a lot more comfortable. Healing light, this was released by Xiao Guang in Haoyue's two heads. At the same time, 5 head-sized fireballs bombarded the dark green dual-bladed demon's body. The power of the chain fireballs was not enough to cause any damage to the dark green dual-bladed demon, but it still caused its body to pause in the air. At this time, Haoyue was already at Long Houchen's side, his 4 powerful limbs supporting his body, his 2 heads raised, and he fearlessly stared at the dark green dual-bladed demon that was pouncing over. Charge! Long Houchen did not stay in place to wait for the dark green dual-bladed demon, and in a flash, he made a charging motion to the side. He had to rendezvous with his companions to deal with this guy. In the process of charging, he casually picked up his lightsaber. The dark green dual-bladed demon's body was indeed tough, but under the circumstances of being attacked continuously, it did not affect its speed in the slightest. Its 4 limbs landed on the ground, and its body instantly changed direction, chasing after Long Houchen and pouncing over. Roar! At this time, Haoyue's 2 heads simultaneously roared at the dark green dual-bladed demon. Speaking of which, it was strange. Previously, when it was surrounded and attacked by everyone, there was no lack of rank 4 skills that fell on its body, but at this time, under the roar of Xiao Guang and Xiao Hua, the dark green dual-bladed demon unexpectedly fell down. His cold eyes were filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. Taking advantage of the time it paused, Long Houchen had already regrouped with his companions. He gave Chen Si a meaningful glance, and the 2 of them once again stood side by side. After Lin Jialu's ice spear technique had no effect, she stood there and quickly chanted an incantation. This incantation was extremely long, and around the magic staff that she raised high in the air, strange blue runes were rapidly gathering. The water elements around her body were becoming more and more concentrated. Lin Xian rode on the back of the rose unicorn, her face revealing a devout radiance. The 2 swords in her hands were slanted to both sides, and the dense golden light and the scarlet flame emitted by the rose unicorn were actually rapidly fusing. The 2 beauties of Haoyue simultaneously chose to accumulate their strength. If they could not seriously injure the dark green dual-bladed demon, no matter how miraculous Long Houchen's Saint's spiritual stove and divine defense were, they would not be able to escape the fate of death in the end. They had already brought out their powerful trump cards. Compared to them, the 2 brothers, Chen Si and Chen Chen, were clearly a bit lacking. They did not have as many resources and were also the most nervous. Brother Chen, it's still the same as before. You don't need to make a move in advance. Long Houchen's calm voice made Chen Si feel at ease. The halo of faith was released from Long Houchen's body, enveloping all 5 of them. The dark green dual-bladed demon, who had paused for a moment, once again pounced forward. The valiant dual blades slashed straight at Long Houchen. This time, Long Houchen did not stand still and directly used divine defense. Instead, he took a step toward the dark green dual-bladed demon. Almost exactly the same as before, the dark green dual-bladed demon's blades didn't fall at the same time. When the first blade fell, Long Houchen's footsteps suddenly accelerated, and he dodged to the side. Immediately after, the radiant shield in his left hand tilted, and a white light instantly erupted from it, forming a thick layer of white light on its surface. In an instant, it collided with the first blade of the dark green dual-bladed demon. Sacred Seep Shield, the defensive skill of the Guardian Knight's shield, was an energy shield formed from holy light spiritual energy. Puff! The first blade of the dark green dual-bladed demon actually slashed across the surface of the shield, and slashed into the ground. Meanwhile, Long Houchen's body only swayed slightly, but it was only for a moment and his body stabilized. Once again, he used divine defense that was as solid as a boulder. With a clang, the second blade just happened to hit the radiant shield at this time. Golden light rose, and Long Houchen finally blocked the dark green dual-bladed demon head-on. It's just that the sacred seep shield definitely couldn't block the first attack of the dark green dual-bladed demon, but with the side shield technique that Yi Hua taught him, he was finally able to block it with difficulty. Raising the sword of light high up, a circle of dazzling, spiky halo blossomed from Long Houchen's body. Guardian Knight's skill, True Shot Halo, increases the effect of all spiritual energy attacks by 10%. With the help of Light's vengeance brought by divine defense, using this skill can save spiritual energy, and at the same time, increase the effect of the skill. The other four were once again shrouded in the halo of the other halos. This time, Chen Si didn't make any mistakes. The heavy shield slammed into the side of the dark green dual-bladed demon. With the amplification of True Shot Halo, coupled with the all-out impact, the dark green dual-bladed demon was knocked back a meter by this blow. Chen Si himself also grunted, took a few steps back, and fell on his butt. A long sword shining with a dazzling red light flew out from the side like a bolt of lightning. The blazing red light caused the entire sword to turn red. With a puff, it forcibly stabbed into the gap of the dark green dual-bladed demon's carapace from the side by half a foot. The dark green dual-bladed demon cried out in pain. Dual blades wildly swept across. Chen Chen staked everything on a single throw to activate the Skyfire Thorn. This was his strongest attack at the fourth stage, and finally broke through a sliver of the dark green dual-bladed demon's defense through the gap. With Chen Si's help, Long Houchen took a breath, blocked with the glorious shield, and released the sacred seep shield again. Puff! The first slash was deflected to the side by the sacred seep shield. Long Houchen stood firmly. He wanted to give his companions an accurate target to attack. In order to withstand this blow, he spat out a mouthful of blood again. However, the glorious shield could no longer block in front of him, and was brought to the side. The light sword replaced the shield, and he used divine defense again. With a bang, a golden light flashed, and he successfully resisted. Blood flowed out of Long Houchen's mouth and nose. The golden red light, as if it could split the entire world, turned into a long rainbow, and fiercely hit the fire sword that had already pierced into the dark green dual-bladed demon's body. Roar! The dark green dual-bladed demon roared wildly, and the fire sword's hilt sank into its body. And the one who launched this attack was Lin Xian. The fusion of light and fire, heavenly flame dance, her fusion technique with the rose unicorn. At this moment, a wisp of dark blue light silently flashed, and just happened to enter the dark green dual-bladed demon's open mouth. Poochie! The green light penetrated through the back of its head. Lin Jialu maintained the posture of pointing her magic staff forward, but her face was already pale. This nether ice needle had almost exhausted all her remaining spiritual power. The light sword in Long Houchen's hand brazenly pierced into the ground, and a circle of golden light burst out from his body. Punishment Knight's skill, Rising Heaven Matrix. The golden light rushed out, and the dark green dual-bladed demon that had just raised its dual blades raised its forearms. The radiant shield that was retracted in front of his chest instantly smashed into its chest. It was forcibly knocked back 3 meters. The white healing light once again fell on Long Houchen's body, but Hao Yue had already drilled in between Long Houchen and the dark green dual-bladed demon. A fiery red ring of light emerged from the top of Xiao Hua's head. Ring of Resistance. At the same time, it affected the dark green dual-bladed demon and Long Houchen. The dark green dual-bladed demon was only knocked back a meter, but the heavily injured Long Houchen was knocked back a full 5 meters. Chen Si had already climbed up from the ground, and held his heavy shield horizontally in front of Long Houchen. The dark green dual-bladed demon's body seemed to stiffen, and it stood there, its body constantly swaying. As a powerful rank 5 demons, it had an extremely tenacious vitality. Even if the fire sword completely pierced its body, it could not immediately take away its life. However, Lin Jialu's nether ice needle became a fatal blow. When Long Haochen blocked the dark green dual-bladed demon's attack for the second time, Lin Jialu's nether ice needle was already ready, and she used a delayed casting technique to wait for an opportunity. She only had the strength for one attack, and if it did not hit a vital point, she would lose all her fighting strength. The moment Lin Xin heavily injured the dark green dual-bladed demon, the opportunity finally came. The nether ice needle pierced its brain, and even if the dark green dual-bladed demon's body was a bit stronger, it would not be able to survive. Boom! The dark green dual-bladed demon fell to the ground like a mountain of gold or a pillar of jade. His body twitched as dark green blood flowed out from his wounds. Long Haochen used the light sword to support his body, and gasped for breath. Even though Xiao Hua had used the healing light on him twice, he had endured almost all of the dark green dual-bladed demon's attack. The huge power shook his body, and he felt as if his internal organs were on fire. He had already suffered internal injuries. Murmuring a somewhat lengthy incantation, a layer of golden light rippled out from his body, and a golden cross appeared above his head. It was the Holy Light Cover. Guardian Knight's Rank 4 skill. In the previous battle, Long Haochen did not have the time to use this skill, as the dark green dual-bladed demon's attacks were too crazy. A dense holy aura seeped into his body through his pores, stimulating Long Haochen's internal spiritual energy, and the burning sensation from the shock to his internal organs faded a bit. Lin Jialu looked at Long Haochen as if he was a monster and said, "You still have internal spiritual energy to use the holy light barrier? Just how much spiritual energy do you have?" In her view, Long Haochen had used so many skills in succession, and even if he had 2,000 internal spiritual energy, he would have been exhausted. But 2,000 internal spiritual energy represented the Earth Knight, and Long Haochen's fighting strength had clearly not reached the Earth Knight realm. Long Haochen forced a smile and said, "I have a few methods to reduce the consumption of spiritual energy when using skills." He naturally would not reveal the secret of his Son of Light constitution. Lin Xin and Chen Chen also came over, and the five gathered together, looking at each other in dismay. Their faces all revealed expressions of lingering fear. To them, this battle was definitely a new lease of life after a disaster. It seemed that among the five, only Long Haochen was injured. But what if they didn't have the Saint's spiritual stove? Apart from Long Haochen's divine defense, who else could block the dark green dual-bladed demon's full power attack? Even Lin Xin with the rose unicorn might not be able to block it. Chen Chen usually did not speak much, and it was usually his brother Chen Si who made the decisions, but now he gave Long Haochen a thumbs up. "I'm convinced." Long Haochen smiled. Under the nourishment of the holy light barrier, his body was already much more comfortable, but to recover to his peak condition, he would need to rest for at least 3 days. "Let's leave this place first. Sister, you take Sister Lin, let's leave quickly. Be vigilant in times of peace." This was clearly not a place to stay for long. "Haoyue, what are you doing?" Long Haochen was just about to tell Haoyue to hurry up and leave, but he discovered that Haoyue was lying on top of the dark green twin-bladed demon's body. His two heads were tearing at the dark green twin-bladed demon's carapace, and from time to time, he would burst out with fire and light magic. Haoyue's right front claw fiercely slapped the side of the dark green dual-bladed demon's head. Suddenly, a light green crystal-like object jumped out from the dark green dual-bladed demon's already unrecognizable head. Little Light unceremoniously bit it and swallowed it. Chapter 18. "That's a magic crystal?" Lin Jialu asked in surprise. Lin Xin suddenly said, "Yes." The magical beasts of the demon race also had magical crystals, and those were grade 5 magical crystals. "Haoyue, you bad boy, you actually ate it. That can be sold for at least 1,000 gold coins. What a spendthrift." Lin Jialu snorted and said, If I had such a partner, I'd be willing to do it no matter how spendthrift. Hearing her words, Chen Si and Chen Chen immediately nodded in agreement. There was no doubt that in the previous battles, Long Haochen was the cornerstone of their small team, and played the biggest role. However, the flaw did not obscure the beauty, and Hao Yue's performance was equally amazing. Especially its cooperation with Long Haochen. Whether it was the healing, support, or attack, they were all remarkable, without a single mistake. What made Lin Jialu and the others most envious was that Hao Yue's two heads had at least used 5 or 6 types of magic. Although they were all low-level magic, but generally speaking, it was already quite good for a magical beast to have 2 or 3 types of magic. Intermediate level 4 Hao Yue had so many magic, and it was even dual type. Even ordinary level 5 magical beasts could not compare to it. Hao Yue ate the magic crystal, and ran to Long Haochen's side, whining at him. Light, who had eaten the magic crystal, lowered its head in a very human-like manner, as if a little embarrassed. Long Haochen laughed, squatted down, and hugged them, not caring about the blood on their heads. "It's okay, you guys ate it. You guys are the best. Let's go quickly." Lin Xian said, "Brother, keep the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse. It is said that the dark green dual-bladed demon's carapace can be used as medicine, and should be able to sell for some money." He knew that Long Haochen had a space ring. Long Haochen nodded and said, "Okay, I'll keep it first and sell it later and split the money with everyone." "I don't want it," Lin Jialu said without hesitation. Chen Si and Chen Chen also nodded. Chen Si said, "Haochen, we can't accept this. If it weren't for you, we might not have been able to return alive. Moreover, you were injured in order to protect us. No matter what, this spoil of war should belong to you." Long Haochen stepped forward and stored the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse into his storage space before turning to the others and saying, "Can I kill it alone?" He could not. "No matter who contributes the most, we are now a team. Let's head back first. Let's go." Lin Xian brought Lin Jialu along as the 5 of them headed toward the Temple League's garrison. After galloping for 20 miles without encountering any pursuers, Lin Xian rode her rose unicorn and sent Lin Jialu over as fast as she could. Then, she returned with 2 horses. She brought the injured Long Haochen and Chen Si with her and finally returned to the Temple League's garrison when the sun was high up in the sky. They were received by a brigade from the garrison. As they were participating in the monster hunters' trials, the brigade leader was very courteous to them and specially gave them a large tent for them to rest in. "So far we have killed 22 demons. We still need 3 more to complete the mission. I'm afraid my injuries will take more than 3 days to heal," Long Haochen said in a deep voice. After surviving a disaster, after relaxing, everyone felt as if their bodies had fallen apart. Including Lin Xian and Lin Jialu, they all leaned against the tent without caring about their image. Hao Yue was curled up at Long Haochen's feet, his head resting on his tail. He was already fast asleep. Only Long Haochen, who had a blood contract with Hao Yue, could vaguely feel a ripple of energy in Hao Yue's body. It seemed that Hao Yue was digesting the dark green dual-bladed demon's demonic crystal. Chen Si said, "Although we are not injured, we will need at least tomorrow to recover to our peak condition. Tomorrow will be the last day. The demons are more difficult to deal with than we thought." Lin Jialu said without hesitation, "I don't recommend that we try to kill the demons again. Especially before we figure out how they found our traces. It's not suitable to act blindly without thinking. Once they discover us again, who knows what kind of powerful existence the demons will send to deal with us." Lin Xian frowned and said, "But our mission is not completed yet." Lin Jialu took a deep breath and said, "I will withdraw. If it wasn't for Long Haochen, I would not have been able to come back alive. Through this battle, I have also deeply realized my own shortcomings. Even if I get a ticket to participate in the monster hunters' trials, I will not be able to get a good result." Lin Xian was slightly stunned, and the gaze she gave Lin Jialu softened. None of you need to withdraw. The test has been passed. A slightly aged voice sounded. The curtain was lifted, and an old man holding a magic staff walked in from outside. Wasn't it the Lord Inspector? Lin Jialu gave everyone a look and quickly stood up. She said respectfully, Lord Inspector. The old man waved his hand and said, All of you, take a seat. My name is Feng Yangmu. You can call me Teacher Feng. From now on, I will arrange everything for all of you to participate in the Monster Hunters trials. Compared to the coldness he had shown when they first met, his attitude was clearly much gentler. His gaze lingered on Long Houchen for a long time. Lin Jialu said respectfully, Teacher Feng, you said that we have passed the test. Is that true? Feng Yangmu nodded and said, That's right. All of you have passed the test. The five of them looked at each other, and revealed expressions of joy at the same time. It was obviously best not to step into the demons' territory. After truly facing the demons, they deeply understood how terrifying the demons were. Long Houchen said hesitantly, But we only killed 22 demons. Feng Yangmu looked at Long Houchen and smiled. He said, Numbers don't mean everything. You were able to kill a dark green dual blade demon, so you have already qualified to enter this year's Monster Hunters trials. The test says that each of you has to kill 5 demons, which means they are below grade 4. A grade 4 demons is equivalent to 5. In other words, when you killed the Earth Dragon clan's invisible demon, the task was completed. When the dark green dual blade demon appeared, even I was shocked. However, in order to test your abilities, I didn't attack. I didn't expect you to actually kill it. Chen Si waved her fist. That's great. This time, we can all participate in the Temple League trials. Feng Yangmu nodded and said, Yes. You have passed the test, and at the same time, you have the right to know some things about the Monster Hunters. Listen carefully to what I'm going to say next. It will definitely be helpful for you to participate in the Monster Hunters trials. Everyone was shocked. They sat up straight and listened attentively to Feng Yangmu's explanation. The Monster Hunters trials are held once every 5 years. Every medium-sized city and above will send an inspector to be in charge of the test and evaluation. They will also lead the people who passed the test to participate in the trials. After arriving at the Temple League, you will be sent to your respective temple to participate in the preliminary trials. There are a total of 127 medium-sized cities and above in the Temple League. Almost every city will send their most outstanding youths to participate in the trials. Therefore, the competition in the preliminary trials held in your respective temple is extremely cruel. This is especially true for the Knights Templars, the Warrior Temple, and the Magic Temple, as these 3 temples have the most participants. In comparison, the other 3 temples have much fewer participants, especially the Soul Temple. They only need to go through 1 or 2 elimination rounds to qualify. At the end of the preliminary trials, the 6 temples will each select 10 strongest people to participate in the finals. Anyone who can pass the preliminary trials can already become a member of the new Monster Hunters trials. The main purpose of the finals is to determine the rankings so that the demon hunting roulette can be matched and rewarded. The 60 people participating in the finals will draw lots to compete. Therefore, luck is very important in the finals. If an assassin draws a spellcaster, it will be extremely lucky, just like if a knight draws an assassin. In the end, the 60 participants will be ranked, and the higher they are ranked, the more generous the rewards they will receive. The top 3 participants will also be able to choose a teammate who isn't in the top 3 before the demon hunting wheel matches. Hearing this, Lin Xian couldn't help but ask, Teacher Feng, what does this demon hunting roulette match refer to? Feng Yangmu smiled and said, The Monster Hunters trials, as the name suggests, will select the young powerhouses to form the Monster Hunters. Each Monster Hunters will be formed by 1 powerhouse from each of the 6 temples. 6 people will form 1 Monster Hunter. There will be 60 people participating in the finals. How will they be distributed? At this time, the demon hunting roulette will be used to make the selection and let the heavens decide the team. In the end, 10 monster hunters will be formed. After the monster hunters are formed, there will be another competition to decide the best monster hunters of the competition. The team will be rewarded again. Long Houchen said, "Teacher Feng, what exactly are the monster hunters doing? Since the Alliance made the monster hunters trials so grand, there must be a very important meaning." Feng Yangmu said without hesitation, "Of course. The monster hunters can be said to be the Temple League's most important force in fighting against the demons. The Temple League will issue all kinds of missions for the monster hunters, almost all of which are targeted at the demons. A powerful monster hunters can sometimes pose a greater threat to the demons than an army of thousands. They can even hunt down demon gods. Currently, there are more than 100 active monster hunters. They are the mainstay of the Alliance against the demons. I won't say much about what kind of missions the monster hunters carry out. If you are lucky enough to become one of them, you will naturally know. I will only talk about the rewards for now. You should all know that apart from the various skills that can be learned daily in the 6 temples, there are also some exclusive secret skills. For example, the Knights Templar's divine defense. At this point, he deliberately looked at Long Houchen. These secret skills are usually not available to members of the temple. It is the same even when one's cultivation has reached a certain level. There are only 2 ways to learn them. One is through inheritance. Those powerhouses who have made great contributions to the Alliance can obtain an inheritance ring and pass on some secret skills to their heirs. The other method was to use merit points to exchange for it. By completing missions, the monster hunters can exchange for almost all the reserves of the Alliance. This includes all kinds of powerful equipment, secret skills, and so on. Long Houchen's heart skipped a beat. His gaze fell on the black ring that his father had left him. Inheritance ring, this should be it. No wonder father wasn't afraid of people doubting me for having a skill like divine defense. It seemed that all inheritance rings looked the same. However, the ring on his hand was his biggest secret. This was because, in the ring, all the Punishment Knight's skills were sealed, including all the secret skills, and even Long Xingwu's self-created skills. Long Houchen had never given up on the training of Punishment Knight. As a Guardian Knight, he was the core of the team. He had done very well against the dark green dual saber demons. However, if he hadn't hidden his abilities as a Punishment Knight and used 2 swords to face the dark green dual saber demons, even if it was a one-on-one situation, he wouldn't be certain of victory. However, he had a 60% chance of winning against the rank 5 dark green dual saber demons. Seeing the 5 use blank expressions, Feng Yangmu smiled indifferently and said, "Don't you feel that obtaining achievement points is a bit too far away? Then I'll talk about the rewards of the Monster Hunters trials. Just one should be enough to attract all of you. The reward for the top 3 in the finals of the trials is Spiritual Stove." Ah! Including Long Houchen, the 5 of them cried out in surprise. What did a spiritual stove mean? It was obvious just by looking at how Long Houchen used the Saint's spiritual stove to lead everyone to kill the dark green dual saber demons. And the Saint's spiritual stove was only ranked 34th among the 36 kinds of spiritual stoves that the knight could use. Regardless of the profession, as long as one had a spiritual stove, then it was equivalent to opening the door to becoming a powerhouse. This treasure that could seize the fortune of the heavens and earth was enough to change a person's life. Feng Yangmu felt the 5 people's breathing become much heavier. He smiled and said, "To everyone, the opportunity is equal. You guys have to work hard." His words of encouragement had an obvious effect. The 5 youths in front of him seemed to have forgotten about their fatigue, and their eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Feng Yangmu sighed in his heart. Wanting to obtain the top 3 in the trials was easier said than done. Even if it was this youth who had the Saint's spiritual stove and divine defense, it wasn't possible. However, this youth should be able to enter the finals. As for the others, I'm afraid, Teacher Feng, I have a question to ask you. Long Haochen respectfully said to Feng Yangmu. Feng Yangmu said, Ask away. Long Haochen said, Previously we took advantage of the night to enter the demons' territory and were extremely careful. How did the demons discover us? Even the strongest eagle eye technique can't see what's happening 100 miles away. Feng Yangmu smiled. This is because you guys don't have experience fighting against the demons. Demons have a type of existence called shadow demons. Their stealth ability is even stronger than the Earth Dragon tribe's stealth ability, but they don't have any attack or defense abilities. They become shadows in the darkness. They are specifically responsible for the demon's reconnaissance. Only priests of the 4th rank and above can discover them. You guys must have been targeted by the shadow demons, which is why you were ambushed by the demons. Fortunately, you guys reacted well enough. After saying this, Feng Yangmu stood up and said, Alright, you guys have a good rest. Tomorrow morning, we will be on our way to the Temple League to participate in the competition. After sending Feng Yangmu away, everyone once again fell to the ground. Just as the two brothers, Chen Si and Chen Chen, were about to fall asleep, they were pulled up by Long Haochen. We can't sleep. Meditating after a big battle can not only allow us to reflect on what happened in the battle and increase our combat experience. At the same time, it is also the best time to strengthen ourselves and increase our internal and external spiritual power. Sleeping at this time is equivalent to wasting our lives. Lin Xian nodded and said, Haochen is right. If he can persevere even when he is injured, why can't we? Thus, the exhausted 5 people all chose to meditate to relieve their fatigue. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Long Haochen was the first to gradually wake up from his meditation. His internal organs were still slightly aching. The dark green dual-bladed demon's attack yesterday was really too strong. A full frontal attack definitely exceeded 3,500 spiritual power points. Even with the healing from the Holy Light Shield, his internal injuries still needed a period of time to recover. It was not impossible to purely rely on light magic to heal, but if that was the case, it would affect his own self-healing ability. The gains did not make up for the losses. However, although his injuries had not healed, Long Haochen was pleasantly surprised to find that his internal and external spiritual power had improved by quite a bit. He was now a level 8 Great Knight, and his internal and external spiritual power added up to more than 1,600 points. Of that, his external spiritual power was at least 240 points. And after yesterday's hard battle, first of all, his external spiritual power had increased by about 10 points, and his internal spiritual power had increased by 20 points. He was one step closer to becoming a level 9 Great Knight. Facing the threat of life and death was the best way to stimulate one's potential. Furthermore, Long Haochen had practically withstood all the attacks from the Ground Dragon clan's Prowler and the Suilan clan's dark green dual-bladed demon. Naturally, his spiritual power had increased the most. Of course, this increase was just Long Haochen's own estimation. Unless it was a breakthrough, it was impossible to determine one's own spiritual power's specific data just by feeling it. The other 4 woke up one after another. After waking up, their eyes were filled with joy. Clearly, they had also felt their own cultivation increase. Washing up breakfast. Just as the 5 of them finished tidying up, Feng Yangmu appeared in front of them again. Let's go. Just like when you completed the trial mission previously, I will be by your side. After saying this, in a flash of green light, Feng Yangmu disappeared. Lin Xian stuck out her tongue and said in a low voice, This teacher Feng has the cultivation of a level 6 archmage, right? After yesterday's bitter battle, the relationship between Lin Jialu and Lin Xian had clearly eased up a little. Lin Jialu nodded slightly and said, Teacher Feng is a level 4 archmage of the 6th level, and a deacon of our magic sanctuary. After the 5 of them thanked the garrison that had taken care of them, they mounted their horses and set off. Lin Jialu naturally still rode the Rose Unicorn with Lin Xian, and sped towards the northwest where the core of the Temple League was located. This was a palace that was entirely dark gold in color. It was about 15 feet tall and circular in shape. There wasn't a single window here, but it was illuminated by a special kind of gloomy darkness. It was a smear of dark blue. To be precise, it was layers of dark blue halos. On the ground, the dark gold lines formed a crisscrossing 6-pointed star. Countless runes extended from the 6-pointed star to the entire palace. Be it the ground, the walls, or the ceiling, they were all covered with these runes that seemed to be filled with mystery. If Long Houchen could come here, he would definitely recognize that these runes were very similar to the ones he had seen at the teleportation portal on the Knight's Holy Mountain. They were the ancient Elven language. However, the ancient Elven language here was shining with the dark blue color that lit up the palace. It was not of the dark attribute, but it was filled with a gloomy and murderous aura. It was completely different from the ancient Elven language aura at the teleportation portal on the Knight's Holy Mountain. The dark blue runes were filled with a restraining aura, as if they were sealing something. In the middle of the palace, above the center of the 6-pointed star, a short sword floated quietly. It was a pitch-black short sword that did not emit any luster. If it were not for the dark blue light surrounding it, it would seem as if it did not exist. There weren't any spiritual energy fluctuations, but it was that extremely deep black that seemed to be ruling over everything here. The dark blue runes seemed to be worshipping it from the very beginning. Below the pitch-black short sword, in the center of the 6-pointed star, sat a person. It was a young girl. She was sitting cross-legged, and her long purple hair draped over her shoulders. There seemed to be a faint layer of dark blue halo covering her. Her skin was very fair, to the point that it was unhealthy. Her exquisite facial features were like a gift from the gods. Her slightly immature body did not emit any youthful aura. That was because she did not look like a living person at all. She looked more like a statue. Her eyes were open, but her pupils were completely grayish-white. Such a stunning appearance, but the window to one's soul was closed. It was enough to make anyone who loved beauty sigh. "It's time to go." A cold voice rang out from all directions in the palace. "Okay." A light snort came from the beautiful girl's jade-like nose. She slowly stood up and raised her head towards the black short sword in the air. A dim light flashed, and the black short sword hovering in the air descended from the sky. It pierced straight through her forehead and disappeared without a trace. In the next instant, all the ancient elven runes in the hall dimmed and lost their dark blue luster. 10 days later. Imei City. It was one of the most flourishing cities in the Temple League. Because it was located inland, this huge city had not experienced the baptism of war. Its prosperity was second only to the Holy City where the Temple League was located. It was only 800 miles from Imei City to the Holy City. It could be reached in 2 days on a fast horse. Long Houchen's group of 5 had arrived at this flourishing city early in the morning. Compared to this place, Haoyue City seemed to be as small as a street block. However, the 10 days of travel had exhausted Long Houchen's group of 5, and they were not in the mood to enjoy the scenery. They found a hotel to stay in, ate a good meal, and then returned to their respective rooms to take a hot bath. There was no better way to relax than this. There were still 4 days until the deadline for the Monster Hunters trials. Therefore, they decided to rest in Imei City for a day and continue their journey the next morning. After a day of rest, everyone felt a lot more comfortable. Long Houchen was meditating in his room when someone knocked on the door. "Houchen, come with sister for a stroll." Lin Xian's voice came. Circulating the spiritual power in his body, Long Houchen slowly got up. Coming. Along with the advancement of his cultivation, the spiritual power in his body had become quite pure. the pale golden halo with the saint's spiritual furnace in his chest as the core for cultivation gradually showed signs of compression and solidification. When his spiritual power could condense into a liquid state, it meant that he would enter the realm of Earth Night. It seemed that there was only a difference of 300 spiritual power, but in reality, the dividing line of the fifth step was not that easy to break through. "Sister, what are we going to do?" Long Houchen opened the door. Lin Xin, who had changed into casual clothes, was leaning against the door, looking at him with a sweet smile. Lin Xin pulled his arm and said, "Don't ask, just come with me. How you look after the house. In a moment, sister will buy some dried fish for you to eat." While speaking, she directly pulled Long Houchen out of the room. Xiao Guang and Xiao Hua swallowed a mouthful of saliva, jumped on the bed without a trace of politeness, and went back to sleep. Ever since eating that magic crystal, the amount of time it slept every day increased by a lot. It was only in the last few days that it got a little better. Walking to the entrance of the hotel, Long Houchen was surprised to find that Lin Jialu was already waiting there. Seeing him, she faintly smiled and said, "Let's go." "Two sisters, what are we going to do?" Long Houchen asked doubtfully. He could see that Lin Xian and Lin Jialu should have a goal. Lin Jialu covered her mouth and chuckled, saying, "Haven't you always wanted to sell the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse? This Imei city has a very large auction house, and the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse can barely be auctioned. Let's sell it for some money. Sister also wants to buy something." Long Houchen somewhat disapprovingly agreed. In his heart, it was obvious that cultivation was more important. Lin Jialu smiled and said, "Little guy, don't be dissatisfied. The auction house is a place you will definitely visit frequently in the future. We can find almost everything we want there. Of course, that is if you can pay the price. If you can become a member of the monster hunters in the future, you will definitely have dealings with the auction house. Let's go take a look first, so that we can find the door in the future." Lin Xian nodded and agreed. She's right. The auction house has the most good things. The largest auction house in our Temple League is the Sanctuary Alliance auction house, established by the 6 major temples. Only the top 10 main cities have them. This Imei city is one of them. It will only be beneficial for you to take a look. In the future, no matter if you want to sell or buy, the Sanctuary Alliance auction house is the most suitable place. Long Houchen said, "Then why don't you ask the 2 big brothers Chun to go with you?" Lin Jialu said, "They don't buy or sell things, so there's no need to go. Let's go quickly. I've asked, and there's an auction tonight." The biggest city that Long Houchen had been to in the past was Haoyue City. Moreover, ever since he met his father, he spent most of his time cultivating and rarely came into contact with the outside world. He was only 14 years old, so he naturally had a curious heart towards new things. Moreover, both Long Xingwu and Yi Hua had told him that a person's strength could be strengthened by external objects. The most obvious ones were weapons, equipment, and elixirs. It would be good to take a look. Imei City's Sanctuary Alliance auction house was located in the busiest area in the city center. From afar, a huge white oval building could be seen standing there. This huge oval building was at least 60 meters tall. The dome seemed to be made of special metal, and it emitted a faint halo under the afterglow of the setting sun. "It's too big." Long Houchen looked at the huge building in front of him in a daze. The outer walls of the auction house gave people the feeling that it was a city wall, and he couldn't see the end of it at a glance. Lin Jialu smiled and said, "This Sanctuary Alliance auction house in Imei City isn't the biggest. The biggest one in the Holy City is twice as big as this place, and it can accommodate 20,000 people to participate in the auction at the same time. I reckon that this place can only accommodate around 10,000 people." Long Houchen said in shock, "With so many people bidding at the same time, wouldn't the price be raised to the sky?" Lin Jialu shook her head and said, "That won't happen. The items being auctioned are already expensive, and no one will waste money unless they urgently need the item. The most powerful thing about the Sanctuary Alliance auction house is that they don't take any commission. Because it's large enough, they only need to rely on the tickets to make a lot of money. Ordinary tickets are 1 gold coin each, and the further you sit, the higher the price. It's said that the innermost box near the center of the auction house costs 1,000 gold coins for one use. Lin Xian bought the tickets, received 3 number plates, and walked back. She handed a number plate to Long Haochen and Lin Jialu respectively and said, "Let's go in. Long Haochen, let's send the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse for appraisal first. It should be auctioned today." After walking into the Sanctuary Alliance auction house, the first thing they saw was a hall with a passage in the center that led to the auction house. On both sides of the hall were tall counters, and there were at least 10 guards on each side. Apart from warriors, there were also guards dressed in magician attire. Through Lin Jialu's introduction, Long Haochen learned that the counters on both sides were for appraisal and to collect the auction money. There were a total of 8 such passages in this Sanctuary Alliance auction house. They were in 8 different directions to facilitate the flow of people. The Sanctuary Alliance auction house would hold auctions every day, so it was a very lively place every night. Some of the richer people even regarded participating in the auction as a way to relax. After all, they could see a lot of good things here. It was also very beneficial to increase their knowledge. Lin Xian brought Long Haochen to the counter on the left for appraisal of items. There weren't many people queuing here, so it was their turn soon. "Hello, I want to auction the corpse of a demon's demon," Long Haochen said to the middle-aged man behind the counter. The middle-aged man looked up at him and pressed somewhere. The wall on one side of the counter slowly fell down, forming a 3-meter-wide platform. "Put it up," the middle-aged man said lightly. "Thank you." Long Haochen injected his spiritual power into the forget-me-not ring, and a faint blue halo shone around the ring. The forget-me-not pattern on it seemed to come to life, and a ball of green light shot out from the ring, falling on the platform and rapidly growing. "Huh!" The middle-aged man behind the counter was surprised. "Dark green dual-bladed demon. This is rare." As he spoke, he had already stood up and came to the side of the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse to carefully examine it. After a moment, the middle-aged man frowned slightly. "Unfortunately, there are no magic crystals, or the price would at least double. In this situation, the starting price can only be set at 800 gold coins, but with the rarity of the dark green dual-bladed demon, it can be guaranteed that there won't be an unsold auction." The middle-aged man took out a black number plate and handed it to Long Haochen. There was a magic crystal of the same color inlaid in the center of the plate, and a number 126 on the back. "After the auction, please use this as proof to collect the gold coins from the opposite side. Be careful not to lose it, it only recognizes the plate and not the person." The starting price was 800 gold coins, so everyone could get at least 100 gold coins. In the eyes of Long Haochen, this was a large sum of money. At least there was money for Haoyue to buy dried fish. That guy's appetite was getting bigger and bigger, and he really wanted to eat Long Haochen until he was poor. "Wait a moment." Just as the middle-aged man was about to put away the dark green dual-bladed demon's corpse, a hurried voice suddenly sounded from behind Long Haochen and the others. Then, a person quickly walked over. "Don't put it away yet. I want to buy this thing directly." Long Haochen looked at the person in surprise. It was a young man who didn't look much older than Long Haochen, no more than 20 years old at most. He was about half a head taller than Long Haochen, and had a head of long, dark green hair that hung down his back all the way to his waist. His skin was a sparkling milky white, and his handsome features were actually comparable to Long Haochen's. But with that waist-length hair, he looked even more like a girl than Long Haochen. Luckily, his Adam's apple was still obvious. The white magic robe he wore complemented his slightly slender figure, very much in line with the figure of a magician. It was just that he didn't have a magic staff in his hand. The most peculiar thing was this person's eyes. His light green eyes always carried a hint of a mischievous smile, but it was very easy to give people a feeling of familiarity. At this moment, he was looking down at the dark green dual-bladed demon. Looking at such a ferocious magical beast, this young magician actually had a somewhat intoxicated expression on his face, and even used his hand to gently stroke the dark green dual-bladed demon's carapace. Good stuff, really good stuff. I want it, brother, name a price. As he spoke, he straightened his back and looked Long Houchen in the eye. Seeing Long Houchen's appearance clearly, this young man with dark green hair couldn't help but be stunned, and a strange splendor of surprise flashed in his eyes. He murmured, "There's actually someone more handsome than me in this world? That's impossible." Lin Xian stood to the side and couldn't help but laugh out loud. This young man was very handsome, but his personality was completely different from Long Houchen's. Just his narcissism alone was far beyond Long Houchen's. Long Houchen's face stiffened, and he said, "I've already entrusted it to the Sanctuary Alliance's auction. I'm afraid I can't sell it to you." The young man continued to look Long Houchen up and down a few times, and a trace of jealousy actually appeared in his eyes. "Impossible, this is impossible. How can he be more handsome than me?" As he spoke, he even used his hands to play with his dark green hair.